For just an hour, I think I'm going to brave it out with one of those chairs instead of dragging the other one. Yeah. Oh, these are not good. Aren't they? If this were all I've done. Yeah.
I found one for myself. You think it's too cold?
At least it's dry this week.
And I'm good, but
I turned it down to 71 or 2 this afternoon. Everything. It really worked. It's cool in here.
I'll be after the third, because basically the budget is done as seen that. I think Gary will be too.
Yeah.
This has been in budget.
Thank you. Doing well.
What do you got there, Bill?
It didn't sound like it.
It's delicious.
Okay, because I actually got a little nervous. I saw that. I'm like, is everything okay? Gotcha. Okay, guys, 5 o'clock.
I know a lot of water.
Okay.
All right. Wow. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And Madam Vice Chair, would you be willing to take the roll, as well as I know you already said you do the minutes for tonight. Would you be willing to take the roll?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McClenathan. First, Mayor Miller. Here. Alderman Clem. McClenathan.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Busker.
Here.
Brashaw's here. Keister. Chesney.
Here.
All right, if we could go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, just as a reminder, we didn't do it last time. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
All right, moved by Alderman Ross and seconded by Alderman Chesney. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 5, approval of the minutes from the June 5th, 2017 Finance Committee, the whole meeting. I do apologize. You do have those on your desk right underneath your agenda item. Those came just to me, and I didn't realize that until recently. So please take a moment to review those, and when ready, entertain a motion.
So. Second.
There's a motion to approve by Alderman Chesney and a second by Alderman Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I'd ask that the minutes reflect that Alderman Clem is here, Madam Vice Chair. Public comments. Are there any public comments, Director Mills? None. Okay, thank you. Now we're on item number 7, presentation of draft budget by City Manager Crowe. City Manager Crowe.
Well, thank you for this, department heads and, Gary, particularly Gary, has been putting long hours in, with, directions we're going forward with the budget. He's done a good job here going forward. And, what we're gonna do, we'll turn around, we're gonna highlight the budget. Everybody should have gotten the budget. The one thing I will tell you is, you have the updated budget that was updated at noon today, followed by, there are additional slides there that were the TIF that were done literally 5 minutes before we finished the meeting. And that was actually met with everybody that had submitted inputs, for the TIF. We sat down, Nancy and I sat down and went through the TIF with all of them, and this is kind of what we've agreed to. There is one thing that I will, when I get into the brief, I'll talk about that we are short from City Center that they have requested on. We may have to go back and address that. But start with it. You have a balanced budget. The one thing I will tell you is the revenue is short by $281,116 from what our expenses are. However, that being said, we prepaid our workman's comp out of last year's budget, so that makes the budget balanced as we move into this. We've cleared that through the auditor, and we cleared that through our insurance agent. So that amount for prepaying the workman's comp is already taken into consideration. And that was the reason why the revenue and expenses, we were able to cover that. So general fund revenue, here's what a breakdown of it. One of the things you need to understand on general fund is I've done some more. When you were initially looking at last year's budget, you didn't have broken out home rule taxes. They were all put together into one budget with both home rule and sales tax, and we have now broken that out within the budget. So you understand and why that's important is not looking at this year or future years, but as in 2020, if the census in 2020 drops us below 25,000, we then have to either go forward with a home rule request for home rule, or we lose that. It's about $2.5 million in revenue by year 2022. And I talked to the state attorney general, state comptroller, as well as our attorneys on that. So this kind of breaks down what our revenue is. General expenses, and this takes into cost of city council, the mayor and manager's office. As you see, there's a big increase in the mayor and manager's office, and that includes, that's because we rolled my salary and expenses in there, plus some things that were under city council, such as legal fees, are now in the city managers. And in addition to the legal, that's under the legal department. We've added that. So it's about 217,000 is what we estimated, which is quite a bit different breakdown, reduction. We've seen a continued drop, and 217 is what we budgeted. I'm estimating we're going to be actually about 197,000. So but 217 is where we put the estimate based upon all the inputs we've got for legal fees. So Public Works, Tom's done a real good job at tightening up. We are not buying salt because we have enough salt, so we're saving $200,000 there. Airport Authority, they wanted to build an additional wall as well as buy a fuel truck. We pulled that out of the mix so they're renting a fuel truck next year at about, the cost is about $21,000. They were going to go forward and purchase it at a cost of $65,000. We've taken that out, and I've talked to both the airport, both the manager out there as well as the airport board. Street department, the one thing you need to be aware about street department is that we have recently received the notification on motor fuel tax, and what that does, the impact of motor fuel tax is the maintenance of and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean and Tom, Tom's back there, it's the maintenance of the state roads as we go forward. That money is going to be frozen as of the end of this month. But this budget includes that amount of money in there.
Correct. You have, we get 4 quarterly installments that we get for maintaining IDOT roads through intergovernmental agreement with IDOT. There were specific provisions, if you recall, in 2015, we approved that, and that they're taking action on that. So we will not receive any funding, therefore we are not to maintain their state roads. I also received the letter today that stated that any state collaborative projects with the city would also stop all funding. You're obviously allowed, in the case of the street resurfacing program that we'll talk about later tonight, we can proceed. You just got to remember that you won't get reimbursed quite some time because the monthly allotments will cease starting in July.
So that's, so we go, we have put the additional amount of money in for resurfacing that you asked for, but it wasn't the total amount, as well as the amount for demo. And again, it wasn't completely everything you asked for, but we'll go over that in a little bit here. One of the things you'll notice is we, I'm sorry, this slide kind of crunched together. I did that once I put it up here. We are reducing the number of firefighters through attrition by 2 in this budget as we go forward. And we'll go through all the issues. Water and sewer, this is the first time you guys have actually seen water and sewer. We are seeing the makeup in revenue that we expected to continue on with projects. We have a couple decision back points for you as a council to go forward on how we want to spend the revenue that we expected, and specifically dealing with the wells and drilling the wells because of the cost. And we see that as our biggest bogey up front, coming up front. Sean and I have a couple of proposals here as we go forward. Additionally, they need to hire some additional people. We're getting ready to lose our water and chemists, and we need to hire somebody behind you. Okay, here's some key issues that we need to cover. So, how we got to where we're at. Reduce firefighters by 2 through attrition. We're only hiring 3 new police officers. Originally, that figure of 250,000 only allows us to hire 3. Now, here's the interesting thing. We had 2 empty billets that we were already looking to fill. We had additional authorized for 3. There are, Chief Argo's not here tonight because he's meeting with the fire. They're doing an emergency session of the Fire and Police Commission tonight. Right now, we don't have enough people. They're even in the pool to hire. We only have 4 bodies in the pool to hire. He's asking them to change their hiring procedures to go hire guys that in a way they can bring outsiders in that have training through other communities as we go forward, so he can even fill that 3rd officer billet. And one of the things we've done is we have a grant that we've gone out to offset this cost. It's $125,000 over 3 years per officer hire. I know, Chairman, you asked me that question. And then the matches, that takes up the salaries and any of the legacy costs we have to cover. So the pensions, so that'll offset some of that cost. We got $240,000 in demo money, $275,000 in road money is what we've put in here. Leasing the street sweeper, we're still in negotiations on the street sweeper. Their price initially came back higher than what they had initially told me. So Tom and I are meeting with them later this week to make sure we can get that price down. In the budget, it's that we had initially discussed. At least the fuel truck at the airport, remove the rework of the hangar wall at the airport from the budget, reduce salt buy. In fact, I think we're not buying any. We have not put any major buys of salt in here. Reduce the health care stopgap funding. We had set aside a level of funding to cover any gaps. What we did was that we asked our insurance agents to really give us a good feel for what we're actually paying for health care. So we actually we're budgeting for what we're actually buying here. keep prepaying for the workman's comp, reduce insurance costs. The one thing that's not in here is we still need to fund out of the cash reserve our financial software. We did not, Gary and I do not feel good because we haven't got all the feedback yet from all the different softwares we're looking at to really budget that. That's going to be, we're going to pull that out of the cash reserve that we have. When I say cash reserve, the city does not have what is referred to as a real reserve. We have money that's in the bank that's commingled with our other money. And it's a cash reserve, it's an on-hand cash reserve. IGFOA, International Government Financial Officers Association, as well as my professional organization, said you should establish 15% in reserve in both your enterprise funds, which are your water and sewer funds, and your general funds. We are looking at next year's budget to go forward and start establishing that. I know Sean is already looking at that, and we're looking at doing that on the general fund side. We think we can set aside $1 million in reserve as we go forward, and that's supposed to be maintained in a separate account in long-term investments. So that's one thing we haven't been doing as a city. So what we'll need is approval to not hire 2 new firefighters to fill some of the attrition. We need authorization. I know you had asked us to hire 4 new police officers, but only hire 3, and then reduce both your demo and road money. You already talked to me about police and the street sweeper. I'm not yet ready to give you the whole facts as we go forward, but that should be on the 3rd when we do approval, when we give you the formal budget here. So that's the general side. Are there any questions on the general side on the issues there?
If you're going to reduce the firefighters by 2, do you think that's going to cause a problem with overtime?
It is not. It's not going to. We may see an increase. Chief's been very good about managing his Kelly hours. It may see an increase in Kelly hours, but we believe that we can cover that with the budget as the discussion as we went forward when he and Gary talked about it as well. And then I talked with the chief about it as well. Okay. And we don't see a reduction in service as well. And it's one of the things that we were going to look at anyway as we go forward.
Manager Crowe, I first would start off by saying a thank you to you and to all the department heads and the staff. I appreciate the fact that while we waited obviously till you were on board to do that first budget numbers, the formal budget numbers, we didn't want to handcuff you. You've done a situation where we gave you some priorities that we wanted to look at in regards to increased numbers for police, increased numbers from demo, increased money from actually start contributing for the city funds to the roads as well, outside of just motor fuel tax. You brought us back things that reflected that priority. If not, I think the demo money is probably pretty close to double what we spent last year. 3, when we started off with 4, but 3, that's very, that's a very good movement with the officers. And I think the 275 proposed in road money gets us about 40% of what Engineer Gallagher said he needs additionally on an annual basis. So for a year 1 step here, and then for you to do that and come back and to bring us a balanced budget on that on the first draft, I greatly appreciate that. Following up in regards to what Alderman Ross had said, we covered some of those things there, but you had indicated that in regards to the firefighters and attrition, you believe you can handle it through the operations, and also this isn't a knee-jerk reflection of trying to make the numbers work. This is actually something that you were going to be recommending at some level down the road.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
We were looking at it, and it's something that I want to really look at how we're operating and manning. So I'm looking at manning across all departments, just not firefighters.
Okay.
And the one thing I didn't say, this also reflects the elimination of the 2 positions that is going to be in front of council tonight. That was an additional savings as we go forward, and we are working on the details on how we're going to move forward with that. Just need to sit down with departments on the fund comes up on that, so.
And Manager Crowe, thank you. You brought us also some downtown TIF proposals, and but you wanted to talk with the general first.
General first, and
Okay.
we're going to talk about some of the issues on water and sewer, which is the next slide. So the key issues, preparation for water and sewer, new O&M increases, we can begin to pay off all of our debt obligations that we have and what we got. We are also going to be moving forward and replace 16 valves and 2 hydrants. On top of that, we're developing a hydrant replacement program to replace all the whole hydrants, add 3 new staff members, need for succession planning. One of the things that we'll have to consider is when you're dealing with wells, the drilling of wells, this is a 3-year process that you have to front load. One of the recommendations that Sean and I are going to make is to front load, borrow this money through IEPA, and then pay it off over a 20-year loan at a lower price, because you need to have that. A standard well, we're going to go to 900 feet, is that about right, Sean? 600, but it's still about a $1.7 million per well, plus we're going to have to do the new pumping stations. The total cost of like $5 million.
Somewhere between 5 and 7, depending on how it goes.
And we need to front load that money to begin with. We save that money because we are putting ourselves in danger of not addressing the EPA concerns with our water, and we're actually putting ourselves in a position where that we're not going to be able to address concerns out there, as you know, with the wells. So wells right now, we're to really continue to grow in the community, we need to address these 2 wells. We need to purchase the property. Having just gone through a well process, and Sean has to, is 18 months from design to put in build, bit in the ground. We need to front load the drilling companies with the test wells as we go forward after we purchase the property. So that's why one of the recommendations is to borrow the EPA money and under the new revenue coming in. The other thing is buying a Vector truck and camera truck to address the lateral problems, as well as the Vector truck will actually allow us to do if we have problems with our sewer system and as well as the water system to suck out. It's a big vacuum, basically. And we don't have that capability. We have to contract out that capability, but it will allow us to more quickly address issues and also do the repairs in the area. And I'll turn that over to Sean if you want to go some further on that.
Yeah, just to give you the quick bullet points to echo what Lowell said. We're at a transition period where we've been looking at these 2 pieces of equipment for some time. I know Director Glendenning had previously spoke on that as well. Our lateral launch camera truck opens the door to a lot of the 3rd Ward, 5th Ward floodplain areas where we can start to be looking at individual services. So we can line as much pipe as we'd like to, but if you have a 6-inch gaping hole that's just flooding in water at every residential opening, then all the lining in the world isn't going to solve the problem. So in order to tackle that I&I, we're looking in the floodplain areas of much of the 3rd Ward of using that equipment to open our door to grants and homeowner assistance for replacing those sewer services and solving our I&I problems once and for all. So that becomes pretty much a 2-man crew that you're committing to run that camera system and to push forward into those grants and to solve that issue. So then on the other side of it, we have the Vector truck. We have one that is in need of replacement. We have 2, and this would be to upgrade that to a much, I guess, a more equivalent equipment that we could also then begin to use at the landfill. Actually, both of these pieces of equipment begin to outsource to the landfill as well to save the city long-term dollars on landfill maintenance. And I know we've discussed that a little bit. Where the issue comes in is we got a couple of priorities right out of the gate. You got your wells that we need to be tackling, and we also need these pieces of equipment. If we defer the equipment and pay for the wells in cash, then it may be 4 or 5 years before we buy this equipment. And that's the concern. So if we front load this, purchase the equipment, borrow the money for and get perhaps 30% forgiveness like we have, it beats your interest rate that you would pay on those loans. It makes it a better value, and we can do 2 things at once right out of the gate instead of waiting one after the other.
The other thing on the wells is if the borrowing of money allows us to execute now, where we would do it very much more piecemeal, where we'd have to go out and purchase the property, and then get the test wells drilled, and then 6 months from the time that the test wells drilled, at least my experience, Sean's had some quicker time with it, and he says it's because of the depth I'm used to going to. 6 months turnaround time for EPA before they even allow us to drill. And so you have to do it all in the same process as we go forward, get the pipe laid in the ground so we can tie in new wells. So my recommendation on here is, if nothing else, we need to borrow the money to get that up front so we can move forward, and that can be covered for it, but we do ultimately, we need that. And the other thing is to add the 3 new staff members. There is no succession planning right now in the water and sewer department, and that we, in the leaving of Tom, has identified that, and we're having to do the nationwide search to do that as we go. And so those are the decision points as we need to go forward. How are you going to address this for water and sewer?
And yes, Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Director, okay, Director Mills is in here now. Manager Crow, the $240,000 that's been allocated for demolitions, I think the target was 80 demolitions in 2017. Does that put us on target, or is that going to bring us, where's that going to bring us in terms of total demolitions?
Alex, the total number of demolitions, I know we just bid out 9 demolitions through the bid, and you're actually going to approve that.
It was, we did 13, we had those 2 separate bids, and the pricing is really competitive in that. So if we can keep getting competitive pricing as we go along, we'll be able to get close to our targets that we've set.
And for everybody, the council's information, Alex, we're changing some rules about the correct amount, and so he will be really focused on this demolition as we go forward, and that's when he's going to pick that name all up, so.
Director Mills.
Will that put us on target for 240,000? Will that allow us the 80 demolitions for 2017?
We'll get close. We'll need a couple lucky breaks here and there, but we're going to push.
Well, what we found in the bidding process, and we'll see it in the main meeting, is we're seeing more where the bidding is a package versus separate, where we used to be able to pick and choose. Now they're saying you either take it all or you don't take any of it.
Okay.
So.
Looking at those numbers, I think we could hit that number from what we're looking at least. I would think it'd be pretty competitive on it. What I wanted to do was open it up to questions going back to the general side, and I know obviously we don't have a ton of time tonight, but start on the general side. Any general comments and questions on the first part of Manager Crow's presentation, and then get into questions on the second part where we're talking about water and sewer. So first part, questions, comments on the first part of his presentation.
Chairman McConaughey.
To Chipperson or Vice Chair Brashaw.
Thank you. Manager Crow, my question is on the salt that we obviously are going to need for roads. Do we have any of this budgeted in at all? I see that it was cut greatly, the reduced salt buy.
There's still money in the budget for salt purchases, but I ended the season, I actually overbought at the end of the season and filled up the 2 sheds. Because we had such a good light winter, I was able to fill the 1 shed full, that's 1,000 ton. The other shed has probably 700 ton. So going into the next season, we're set pretty well. And depending on the weather, obviously, there may still be a need for salt purchase, but it should be greatly reduced because of the overpurchase this past season.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Judge.
Thank you. Manager Crow, is it accurate in the summation of the budget that we've increased public safety, we've doubled the demolition fund, and that we are going to increase infrastructure by 40%? Is that just a quick summary, all on a balanced budget?
That's correct.
Thank you.
The 40% figure that I said was on the motor fuel tax.
Engineer Gallagher, what we get somewhere between 630 and 660, depending on a given year.
Correct.
And so if we're putting 275 in, that's, we haven't, I don't know, it predates most of us as to the last time that we actually had city funds outside of motor fuel tax designated. I don't know if anybody knows how long it's been on since then.
Not since I've
Okay, so sometime before Engineer Gallagher. So now the 40%, what I was saying is, he said in some of his prior presentations to be able to do a regular program where we're taking care of everything on a regular schedule as opposed to a 200-some year schedule, that we would need approximately double of what we get on MFT. So 275 is about 40% of what he's saying is needed, and we're doing that in year one. That's where I got that number from.
The one concern we have is we don't know what's going to happen in the state budget, so we contracted out, we got some very good bids today, and if it continues on with that, we're going to be able to see the fruits of that, depending on what the state does with MFT.
To follow that point, probably the biggest issue on my part is not knowing what the budget is. So since we have annualized this and we kind of go off of whatever might be coming in the next year, it really ties my hands into what we can develop long-term. So when we talk about a 5-year plan, if we're just going to go off what potentially the state has, which is just a maintenance budget for us, it's hard to put together a 5-year plan because the next emergency pretty much steers wherever we're going to go. So any kind of capital that's invested in this budget allows me to begin to forecast and actually plan for those projects, and specifically allows me to bid stuff in March and April instead of having to bid like we did today in June.
To get the cheaper price at the beginning of the build season.
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman Smith.
I know that there was some discussion at the last meeting regarding the acquisition of the second street sweeper that's on the list. Mr. Crowe, so I assume that it's your recommendation that we maintain the fleet at 2?
That is correct. What we're trying to do is do the negotiation with them there, and we're going to actually look at what the cost is. And it'll be we're going to ask about a 7-year lease process for this, maintaining 2 as we go forward. That it would change, it would give us about $30,000 back in the budget
If we don't buy one,
if we don't lease
if
one.
or lease one. But if we pared down to just one and reduced our schedule for sweeping, I mean, do we have any idea what the budget savings would be under that scenario?
It's the budget savings would be right around, like I said, right around 30,000, because you would increase some of your maintenance for the current street sweeper, and plus you would be able to sweep the streets. I think you would see an increase in maintenance from the storm sewer side that we have not calculated into this.
And not a significant savings in an $18 million budget.
No, it's not. What's up, Gary?
Just for clarification, the sweeper money will not come out of Fund 01. They have it has its own budget. That's not part of the 18,000.
Oh,
No,
it's
18
not.
million. No, it's not part of the 18 million.
That's right, it's out of the capital fund for the, I'm still getting used to the different fund codes that we're using. Very correct.
Thank you.
Manager Groh, I just had a question on looking at the interdepartmental area, and I think it's page from those printed out, 55, 119, it's right near the end. There was still a couple contingency numbers, and then I think on the revised sheet that you sent out, could you explain that?
Well, what we've done is we pulled the contingencies out. They did that late Friday, so Gary hasn't been able to get all of the draft budget through, because the contingency was a negative number as we went forward. It would cause us to go, basically it was expending money that we didn't have. So to balance the budget, we were setting up contingency of $250,000 would be laying your hands, but basically it was $250,000 that was in the negative. So I made that change on late Friday, and we just need to get the budget reflecting the rest of it. Correct, Gary? Yes.
Personally, on the first part of the discussion, again, you already got it to a balanced budget, you reflected priorities, so I just have a couple brief follow-up questions, but I don't think they're things that I need to say on the floor. I think they're things that we probably have discussions about over the next couple weeks as we get to that first reading on council. Any other questions, comments, concerns, etc.?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Clem.
Manager Crow, one of the ones that we talked about and mentioned, we talked about how the reserves were actually intermingled.
Right.
And
That's correct.
remember, now that we've got water and sewer and everything else, I remember this loan that was made against these funds. Okay, how does that all shake out now?
Well, what's gonna happen is, Sean, you wanna add to this before?
Well, I think I know what you're gonna say. Basically, we're gonna build up our own reserve, and we have had actually the availability to do so with the Phase B project taking 2.5 years and being able to stockpile what would be our cash on hand. So we can take that burden off of the city because we will have that money accrued in kind of our own emergency fund.
And then what we're gonna do is take the 1.2 million, that's where we're gonna start building our reserve on the general fund side. We're not even gonna touch that commingling it, we're gonna move it right into the separate reserve fund.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Chesney.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. You said we will have built our reserve or emergency fund. Is that one and the same thing?
It is, it's referred to as a reserve fund or emergency fund, or sometimes referred to as a rainy day fund.
Or a COH, cash on hand fund?
No, cash on hand is something different.
Okay, just want to make sure I have that clarified.
Manager Crow, talking about that, you said you were looking at least on part of the city side to do it in next year's budget. I guess what I would say on this is if there are any ordinances or authority that you need from us, please bring that to us as we go forward.
And we're drafting up an ordinance to require, as part of our budgetary, to require the city to go with $1 million to begin with on both sides, and then increasing that $250,000 per year until we reach the goal that Sean has on the water and sewers, $5 million. I mean, that's a nice goal. On the general fund side, I'm not sure we're going to get there, but Gary and I said so we'll target about $100,000 a year, or $100,000 a month is what we want.
And as well as we're going to start building a reserve for Fund 61, which is the healthcare as well.
Right. That's the other thing, is we do not have a reserve. We've got initially $250,000 we've set aside for healthcare reserve. What that does is a self-funded insurance, health insurance policy. You need to have reserve because you never know if you're going to have somebody that's diagnosed with cancer or major health problems. The biggest risk is, pregnancies too for family members as we go forward. So,
Manager Crowe?
yeah.
Just to echo off, because I know $5 million sounds like a lot to sit in the bucket, but I just want to remind everybody you have a $500 million utility out there. So really, we're just trying to have 1% on hand if possible for improvements or catastrophic failures that come on hand. That way, we're not immediately borrowing, and I'm sure we can make that money, invest it, and make that profitable for the water and sewer department. But we're just looking at 1% when you look at how big we have for the utility.
And not the requirement, the recommended amount is you have enough money in your reserves to cover 3 months worth of bills. So basically, you're talking $18 million on both sides. You need to have enough money in that reserve to cover 3. So if we lost all revenue, say we have, I'm just saying, a natural disaster, a tornado come through the town and wipe it out, we need to have that money in the bank so that we can draw on it if we suddenly don't have a reserve, our money flowing in.
Chair.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Manager Grove. This is something we spoke about it Thursday at the neighborhood watch. But since we're doing the budget, did you budget in any work to be done in East Stevenson there between the water problem that we were speaking about for 2 years now?
And this is one of the roads that Director Gallagher and I have talked about, Sean and I have talked about going forward. So particular road projects, I know we will have to prioritize those projects, so that will be something we will address. It's not in this year's budget.
Could you say it again?
It'll either be in this year's budget or next year's budget as we go forward.
Okay, because that's what I heard 2 years ago. I hate to say it anyway.
Well, we can talk about Navajo Drive and a couple other places too.
Yeah, I think we certainly understand there's a lot of priorities out there when it comes to road and infrastructure. I would look at actually your issue more on the timing phase with the Pecatonic to Prairie Path. It'd probably be one of our largest, most expensive projects in that exact area, and trying to piggyback some bids off of that. So not that different parts of, much like I did this year with the Culver project and Mesa Drive, is I always try to look at where else are we bidding projects and double up on that. So I would anticipate the Peck Path being built next year, which would be a good compromise to move that project to the same bid time frame and do some repairs there when we have a contractor already mobilized.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll be back next year.
Okay.
Alderman Cloud.
Two things, one, primarily in water and sewer, okay? You've got in future 3 jobs and people to replace, so on and so forth. Let me ask you, you had mentioned the person that did the testing and stuff. Is this person leaving like in the next couple days or in a certain period of time?
Well, so as exact departure, we expect it sometime in the next 2 years, but in order to get the person trained, we need to get them in, get them through school, and there's a series of schools they have to get their state certification. So this is, you're talking about succession planning as a long-term project.
Okay, thank you.
The other issue with some of these is when anytime currently somebody takes a vacation, you're using overtime to double that up. So the benefit of bringing some of these folks in early is the fact that we wouldn't have to have that overtime within the scheduling, but then they are immediately ready for that position when the retiree comes in or leaves.
Okay, thank you.
Two things, Manager Crow. One, and also Engineer Gallagher. The first one is, I noticed when I went through the budget, in certain departments, there's some lines that talk about maintenance, and oftentimes there'll be, electric, security, things of that nature. Do we have, included in that, is that general building maintenance funding? What do we have for that in this budget?
Well, that was a discussion point at this morning's staff meeting. Currently, the city did not have a general maintenance program for its buildings. And what we're doing, the first thing we're doing is identifying people that will be responsible for each building, and then identifying preventive maintenance as we're going forward into the budget. So I would say in this budget, no, but it will be in next year's budget.
Okay, and the other part that was going over to water sewer, when I look through the water and sewer budgets and storm sewer, depreciation, when you're talking, it's like say $500 million utility, depreciation plays a role in the figures that you don't see maybe in the general fund. Could you explain how that falls into the budget process and whether or not we're having an accurate or what you believe is a sufficient depreciation schedule for moving forward?
That's a good one for a guy that took that over just a couple of weeks ago. I'll
Take a bite.
to Gary because I know Gary's had a lot of conversations about that with former Director Glenn Dane.
Okay.
All right, so, yes, I do believe what the numbers of what the last year audited numbers were, and we have not added any additional work to the schedule. So this year in 2018, we'll have the CPI moving to the fixed asset. So however, the number last year for depreciation should be the same number for this year budget. So this numbers is as accurate as those numbers are as accurate as they can be.
Okay.
I still need to cover the TIF. We've got about 17 minutes to go here. So we have some downtown TIF issues. The number up here is, you actually have the updated number, 178,000 is what we're expecting in downtown TIF. We had 68,000 in the bank. We had more money requested. We had close to 350,000 requested for the TIF. We need to complete Pretzel City Kitchen, complete Denningers, as I hopefully pronounce that.
Denningers.
Sidewalk, and we met with all parties here, and literally the TIF slides are the loose slides. This was updated 5 minutes before finished. This hopefully will meet everybody's requirements. So our recommendations, we have a $41,000, $929 bond payment. We also have an outstanding, so when this is it, the original owners from this is it walked away from their business, they left an additional $7,500 bill for putting in the ramp. Discussion within the staff, some of this was, the permit was issued wrong initially from the city. This is money that we need to, and we've been contacted, and Alex from the contractor continually on this, that we still, it was money that was initially said, promised to this is it, as we went forward into the project, they never paid the contract. Additionally, Wagner House, as part of the Preston City Kitchen, we promised them $65,000. The wall repair is the repair for, we're bidding out right now for the building that we tore down. Alex, what was the name of the property? I'm sorry.
Cobblestone Lawn.
Yeah. We've actually, so the FDF payment, final payment, is reduced here. What we're going to do is we're going to go back and see if we can pick up some of this by the CDB. That was a discussion this afternoon with all the boards. Is FDDF, I will admit, was not in the meeting with everybody else, so we still may and may need to cover that full $30,000. But what we've also done is rolled it into next year. So we said that we're going to get them over 2 years. And then the revolving loan fund, this is setting up a payment for a large $1 million revolving loan to set up a bond. Dave, is that correct, the figure?
It's more or less, yes.
Yeah. So we can go forward. Now, the one figure that's outstanding here, we still need to do some, like I said, these are quick numbers put together, but we still need to do a facade program. City Center has asked us to put the $20,000 towards a facade program. We're still working the numbers here, but this was our very quick coming out of that meeting. And if we go to really go to the Lamb Road TIF funding, this is where we're going to move some stuff, moving the professional services from NIDA, Small Business Collaborative, and into this budget as we go forward. We're going to have to tap into the reserve. This area has $284,000 in reserves, so we're going to eat up the reserves both within the downtown TIF as well as tapping into the reserves for the Lamb Road TIF. Now the good news is both Walmart and Menards comes off the TIF. Our payment is done this year, so we get more money into this area next year. So.
Any questions in regards to the TIF for tonight's purposes, realizing this is not a final draft? Okay.
All right, and that's the budget presentation. We are, so everybody's aware, we'll have the final budget together for the 3rd. We have to have a public hearing on the 3rd and then be open for public inspection for 10 days for final approval.
And Alderperson
Mr. Chairman.
Bradshaw.
Thank you. To clarify, Manager Crowe, the 3rd of July, correct?
3rd of July.
We have a meeting that we're not, City Hall's not closed for the 3rd, right?
No,
okay,
it's
great.
scheduled.
Great.
At least W's taking the calendar.
Okay. I think then, Alderperson Chesney, do you have a comment?
I did.
Okay,
Just quickly, as we were looking at general revenues for under the legal department, Director Bernadelle, in 2016, according to your numbers, we spent $340,000. That was, my memory serves me correctly, that was one union negotiation. I think that was ASME. And then in 2017, we spent $272 under 2 union negotiations. and in 2018, we're projecting to spend $217,000. All that, am I seeing this all correctly?
Yes.
Okay. You know, this council, the current mayor, we went to great lengths to privatize the legal department. Is there any chance that we could get a document that lays out the savings that we were able to secure through through this particular proposal?
Yes, I will discuss that with Manager Crowe, and I will get that document to you.
Good, thank you.
We'll get that out to everybody. That was on my to-do list as part of this budget process. Gary and I have been pulling some late hours here to get this stuff together, so I apologize to you right now. So.
Alderperson Busker.
One quick question, I didn't get to it at the water and sewer. With the state budget situation, what is that gonna fall with the well drilling? Is that gonna affect that at all?
What will affect is our ability to get the permits to, once we do the test wells, what you have to do is do a test, they'll approve where you're gonna drill, do the test wells, and then you have to do a sample of the water off the test well and send it back in. So that's where we'll slow down the processing. We may see, you know, we're talking about shutting down the government, so it'll still allow us to go forward. We still have to purchase the property, still have to get the contractors online, do the test well, so we can still proceed with that as we go forward. Sean, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, with the savings that we received off of the Phase B project and with the capital investment that's being charged now, by the time that we would enter into engineering, which is probably going to be in a month or two, we will have the capital on hand to pay for the engineering. So that's going to be the biggest upfront expense, and we'll have that in our pockets. Then we'll jump to the test wells, as Manager Crowe referred to. I still think if we had to, we could fund that ourselves. But the preference at that time would hopefully be to have that loan open and be able to draw funds from it. Probably the biggest thing we've seen, especially after the last election, was just EPA's slow response time in actually making payments. So 2, 3, we even got up to 7 months, I think, at one point. So that's probably the biggest proponent of having some of that emergency fund cash or whatever in the bank. Is we start to get hit from our construction companies when they have to carry that instead of us. So if we have some cash in the bank that we can begin to make payments while we wait for our payments, that would be preferred. And I think that was Tom and I's directive from the beginning, was to make sure that we had the money available to make these payments as we go.
I'd also note they sent out the library budget as well. From what I recall on that, that's largely that's been recommended by their board, and it's either something that you either accept it or you send it back in its entirety to their board. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. That is accurate. The one thing is that they feel that they're underfunded by about $50,000. So, but with this budget going forward, I could not, in good conscience, recommend us adding an additional $50,000 to the fund.
In regards to the budget for us, we need to get it in front of the council on the 3rd. So I would note again, 3 new officers, doubling our demo money, putting $275 into roads, out raising additional fees or taxes, and a balanced budget. In light of that, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend that we move this to the first council meeting in July for consideration.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to refer this to the July 3rd city council meeting. Is there any comment or discussion on it? Alderman Clem.
Sure, if I could. I know this is a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, and I really commend you guys for putting it together. There's a lot of great things in it. Do we need an additional meeting in between?
We do. Well, the one thing is you need to have we need to have a public hearing before it's considered by council for approval. So whether that is directly before the council meeting We can do it, council, the public hearing, and then council meeting, so your first reading of the budget, and I got Aaron's just walked in, our attorney just walked in, and then you have to have it open for public inspection for 10 days and before we can do the final approval on the second reading.
So what I'm hearing is then we could have it for first on July 3rd, have it for public hearing. The 10 days will be covered before our next meeting on the 17th.
You actually have to have a public hearing before the first reading of it. So you can technically do it that same day before the meeting.
Okay. Okay. So Tom, I guess, or Alderman Clem, I'd put it back, are you wondering whether you wanted a meeting in between now and the 3rd for further discussion?
That's my only question. If you know, there's a lot of information here. I'm not saying we should create a whole bunch of meetings, but does everybody feel comfortable with July 3rd doing a hearing and a meeting? Because you're actually not going to approve it till the following meeting, correct?
That's correct, after
Public in 10 days.
Right.
And
all that.
we'd also have an opportunity to refer to the cow on the 10th if we wanted to for further discussion. Would that be an option too?
The problem is when it goes to public inspection,
Mhm.
you cannot make changes in the budget at that time.
So we're in effect approving it here tonight.
Well, it'll be approved at first reading.
Which would be the 3rd, yeah.
Aaron,
Saying you couldn't make.
that's
changes.
correct, right? Once it goes for public inspection.
Yeah, my experience is that typically there's not much change afterwards. I mean,
Chairman McLean?
Yes.
If I may interject, we do have June 26th open. I know we don't always want to have extra meetings, but that's a week from today. I'm not sure what could be qualified or carried through as of June 26th, but it would help maybe with the public hearing and or another opportunity to discuss the budget.
I want to follow up on what Attorney Zito just said. You indicated there's not much change usually after the public hearing, but is there a legal preclusion from making changes after public hearing?
I've never had experience where there were changes made after once it's been published for the public hearing. Unpack real quick.
Manager.
Take a seat.
I think what you're used to seeing is we bring it to the floor for first and second reading, you'd make a lot of changes, and then we were always looking at the calendar at the end of July and taking backwards 10 days. So you would have already done that process in the normal format. So this is a little bit flipped. We're doing the public hearing at the front end versus I think historically we were doing it towards kind of the end.
We always could meet next Monday, just if we want to solidify things before the 3rd.
Mr. Chair,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
in my opinion, I think we need one extra meeting because if there's anything going on, we need to have these skeletons shaken out of the closet and any questions answered. And then we could proceed to have that public hearing early on July 3rd with our first reading. That's just my general opinion.
Is there a motion to have a meeting on the 26th?
We already have a motion on here for first reading on July 3rd.
Well, I'll withdraw the motion just for purposes of scheduling, and then I'll address it afterwards as well.
We had a second by Alderman Chesney.
I'll withdraw it for now. You try your second?
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay.
We want to do a meeting on the 26th.
So I have both motions withdrawn. I'm sorry.
And Alderperson Bradshaw, do you have a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have a meeting on June 26th at 5 p.m. regarding the budget.
Second.
And what was the time you said at 5?
5 o'clock.
Okay. There's a second. Any discussion on that? Any dissent on that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll have that meeting then on the 26th at 5. Is there anything else to discuss in regards to the budget then further tonight for tonight's purposes? Or just we'll handle it on the 26th? Okay, well, our next meeting is at that time. While we're at the public comment section, any public comments in regards to this Finance Committee, the whole agenda meeting?
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. By Alderperson Keister, seconded by Alderman Clem. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 5:50. All right, you do that.
I think
My wife. Yeah, my wife might have shown up and I wasn't even.
About the big rock and the big box and whole week.
Nope, is it on? It's on, all right. It's after 6 o'clock, if we can get started. Pastor Dixie, could you please give us the invocation?
I'm reading from Isaiah 43 tonight. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. And when you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor the flame even scorch you. For I am the Lord your God. Waters in Hebrew is mayim, and it means life. So, Father, when the very mayim, or waters of life, just are seeming to overwhelm us, we declare tonight that you are always guiding us, protecting us, leading us. You're going to do that tonight with every decision. You are the shepherd of this city council, Father. And you are our ark in the midst of every storm. So, Father, you just pour out your life in the city. Pour out your life in this city council tonight. Pour out your life, Father. Any place where someone is dry or feeling like life is overwhelming, you, Jesus, are the shepherd of it, and you will guide us. So thank you, Father. Thank you in Jesus' name. We all agree. Amen.
Now, being it is 6 minutes after 6, we'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderman Clem.
Here.
McLanathan.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Busker.
Here.
Brashaw. Keister.
Here.
Chesney.
Here.
And Alderman McLanathan, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we can start with item number 1, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for the approval?
So moved.
Motion made by, I didn't catch who it was. Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on June 5th, 2017. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Ross. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the regular meeting June 5th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And number 3 is public comments. Okay, we have 3 individuals that would like to speak, and a 4th one, if it's all right with the council, if there's no objections. Our 4th one is Pink Heels, and instead of making them wait until the end of the agenda, Was there any objection to allowing them all four to speak now? Okay, well then let's start with Joanne Farnsworth. If you could please take the podium and speak your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm Joanne Farnsworth. I live at 424 West Broadway and 507 West Pleasant. I'm here about the tenant tax, which I understand that you're bringing up. I am not in favor of it. I have not seen any value to me as a landlord. I've been a landlord for 22 years, and the times when I thought we were supposed to be working together did not happen. This spring, I received notice of loud noise in one of my buildings. I got a letter. I had sold the building about 7 or 8 months before. They aren't keeping up on it. I understand that the bills are due again. I was not notified. I don't know what I have to pay, and I don't know where I should pay it, or even if they're even doing it anymore. I am very confused. About the noise thing, I called the number on the letter to see if I could get it straightened out. I got no answer. Nobody called back, left a message. Called again, left a message, nobody called back. Left an explanation of what my problem was, asked to have them call me back. Went to the police department, there was nobody there for this particular thing. They were helping somebody. I don't approve of that. I don't like it. I thought when I went to the very first meetings in the beginning, before you started this whole thing, that it was a thing for us to work together. There are headlines in the paper about all the drug dealers. There were some drug deals that came down in my neighborhood. I'm pleased with that. I didn't know they were happening. I don't know which buildings they are, but my entire block has a big black X on it as far as I'm concerned. Because we don't know exactly which one it was. It wasn't mine, but nobody contacted me. No one said you can help us by doing this. Nothing. My real concerns are a couple of things. My thought was that when something happened, we were going to be able to get a hold of us right away, and landlords can take some action, and we can get something done right away. Somebody came around the corner and hit the back of one of my buildings and moved 2 of my rooms 12 inches. Nobody ever called and told me. Some neighbors saw it and called me. Nobody ever contacted me. There were calls to the police department about someone possibly committing suicide, and they had, police went out right away and knocked on the door, did everything they could. They did everything that they could. They didn't call the landlord. And they know it's my building. He's dead. And we're 1 block from the hospital. I think that if you're going to do this, it needs to be something where you actually work with the landlords. Because there's some that won't do it, I know. Landlords. I'm not one of them, and there's lots of us that aren't bad landlords. But nobody's working with us. I think it's a waste of time, and it costs a lot of money. There's bad things going on in regular homes too. It doesn't have to be a landlord's rental property. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And Manager Crow or Director Mills, can you follow up with some of her questions? Thank you. George Fuss.
Evening. Good evening. Good evening. George Fuss, 760 West Lincoln Boulevard in Freeport. And I'm also a landlord owning the property next door. If you all would care to venture up on Lincoln Boulevard, we're having a brand new roof put on that rental. Tear off and brand new roof. Done appropriately, which is what I believe we need to do. And when there is inappropriateness, as the first speaker said, then it needs to be dealt with. So I speak boldly in favor of this ordinance. And it's been said that language is as good as its enforcement. And I see now that we're moving in the direction of enforcement and the expectation that that will be robust and aggressive. And so when we look at the plight of our neighborhoods, it's the weakest link. So what property is the least taken care of? There were drug sales going on next door to my property. The chief took care of it. So I'm gonna give you a little shout out, chief. He's only a phone call away. And if we continue to bird dog these issues, they'll move. If we sit back and say, well, it's somebody else's issue. So I'm doing my job as evidenced by my property and my own property next door. And so folks have commented, I know they're going up and down the block and they're seeing it. So if I can bear witness to one property and we can magnify that by blocks, then we're going in the right direction. And so I think you are working with us. And we'll continue to do so in good faith. That's what I see this ordinance talking about. And if something needs inspected, then as Alderman Bradshaw said a moment ago, and I wrote it down, Alderman, take the skeletons out of the closet. We all know where everybody is. This is too small a town. So I'm just a regular old citizen talking to you tonight and telling you you're on the right path. Seize the day, continue with the agenda item, continue with the encouragement, and let's continue to bird dog the issues in Freeport and make it better for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, George. Connor Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
My name is Connor Brown. I represent Realtors Association of Northwestern Illinois. I'm their Government Affairs Director. We're located here in Freeport, 24 West Stevenson Street. We've been very involved with this particular topic as it relates to residential landlord registration for a number of years, and some of you are newer to the council. So I just want to share just a brief history of our involvement. We've been very supportive of landlords being able to register their properties with the city. We've been very supportive of the communication process, particularly between police, fire, and first responders with landlords so that they can manage their property, because obviously they can't be there 24/7. We were very much in opposition to a mandatory fee that, in my mind, and I was wrong, that I thought would be here forever. I do want to compliment the City Council for taking a hard look at removing this fee. I pointed to a community at the last go-around, City of McHenry, a similar sized community that has a landlord registration program, and they offer it for free. I also cited a few other communities as well. We don't want this to be a revenue driver. We understand that investing is a challenge. You know, there's a lot of people that can't afford to make it up, either from the landlord side or the tenant side, and anything that can be done to alleviate that. We're not looking for people to get away with code violations. We're not looking for people to get away with criminal violations. We think that opening it up from a transparent, open dialogue, that can be done, and I think that achieving that through a very easy system that we introduced and connected with the city at the time, the software developer, to allow landlords to provide that information so that it wouldn't be an additional burden on staff. We thought that that would be a very productive way. So we're very happy to see progress, that it's being moved forward, and hopefully will be completed next month. So we just wanted to share those thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. And Roxanne Goodman.
Hi, good evening. My name is Roxanne Goodman, and I live here in Freeport at 1201 South Carroll. And most of you know who I am, but for those who don't, this will be the 5th year that we've been very honored to host the iconic pink vehicles from Pink Hills. And very quick background, Pink Hills was started about 13 years ago as a movement from a retired firefighter who saw a vision to where he painted his fire truck pink. It's the basis, because women are the basis of our family. And you fast forward to almost 13 years, there's over 200, close to 200 pink vehicles throughout the United States. We got about 85 chapters now. And what these vehicles do is they go from city to city and state to state to give out support and awareness and love and hope to men, women, and children who have cancer. And I would like to invite each and every one of you to our 5th event, which will be this Saturday, the 24th, at Logan's Bar and Grill. We will begin the day with a motorcycle awareness event. Registration's at 8 o'clock. We're going to have a ceremony the ROTC from the school be doing the colors. We're going to have the servants of the shield going to be blessing our bikes with announcements. Then our kickstands are up at about 9:30, 9:35. This year, I'm very pleased to see that we have local fire departments. I think we got about 8 engines coming, along with our pink vehicles. And we've got a pink vehicle coming from Roberts, Illinois this year. And after the motorcycle awareness ride, we will go off into an escort, and we'll be making 4 different stops throughout the whole city. And our first stop is Heritage Woods. And then we'll be going until about 1:45, and then we have the event from 2 to 4. And the reason I told you these different times, because if you're not able to make it between 2 and 4, we'd love for you to show up while we're getting our motorcycle riders ready for the awareness ride. It's free to attend, and of course we're going to be selling our t-shirts. So if you can bring your families out and show the support to our survivors, that would be absolutely incredible, because Freeport, we're our land. We are. I know there's a lot of negativity, but I'll tell you something, when you need Freeport, they step up. And I've seen that in the last 5 years. So we have some bracelets that I would like to give out to everybody. They're all different colors this year. And what we've done is we've got in here, it says, hugs, not handshakes, because we give hugs to people who really need it. It also says it on the back of our shirts. So is it okay if I hand you one? Yes, no, yes, okay. And I'm gonna do it all at one time. This is generally when I give it out to someone, I'll say it's from me to you in honor or in memory of someone who has had cancer. I hope to see you Saturday.
Thank you, Roxanne. Okay, so on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. Is there a member of the council that has any item that they'd like to remove prior to any approval? Seeing none, we have the consent agenda of A, the approval of resolution number 2017-38, temporary closures of streets for cruise night, August 12th, 2017. B, the approval of water and sewer bills payable, $392,882.27. C, the approval to receive and place on file City of Freeport Police Department report of activities for April and May 2017. D, the approval to receive and place on file the City Treasurer's report, May 2017. E, the approval of finance bills payable in the amount of $453,609.90. And E, approval of payroll for pay period ending June 10th, 2017 in the total of $465,681.47. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Keister. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll in the consent agenda?
Clem.
Actually, I think you start with,
I'm starting with the wrong one.
No problem.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Yes.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
And now Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Aye.
okay, on to number 5, we have the acceptance of appointments. What's the council's pleasure? Do you want to do by bullet point or lump them all together?
Mayor,
Alderman Bradshaw.
I move that we lump them all together, if that's all right.
Second.
Okay, all right. Madam Clerk, could you please read for the record the acceptance of appointments?
Acceptance of an appointment of Dawn Pontius as Deputy City Clerk, and welcome, she's sitting here tonight. Acceptance of designations for Open Meetings Act, including W. Anderson, City Clerk, Dawn Pontius, Deputy City Clerk, Diane Cayley, Executive Assistant, and requiring the training of said employees and officers. Also, acceptance of appointment of Freedom of Information Act officer, including W. Anderson, City Clerk, Dawn Pontius, Deputy City Clerk, Diane Cayley, Executive Assistants, Scudder, Fire Administrative Assistant, Matthew Summers, Deputy Chief of Police, and Lynn Coupland, Documents Coordinator of the Freeport Police Department.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Motion standing. Alderman Brashaw.
Okay, so it wasn't for just your motion was to put it all together, correct?
Yes.
So do we then need a motion to approve that? Or is that considered, Debbie, how did you write it?
I understood her to say just to vote on it all at once.
Okay. So then we have a motion to approve by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker, to approve the acceptance of appointments.
Mayor, if that's the case, then could we, if there was a motion by Alderman Bradshaw to lump them all at once, could we take a vote on that motion to lump them all together and then have a second motion by Alderman Keister, which he made, to actually vote on?
Sure. We'll just do a voice vote on that first motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman
Chesney.
All those in favor of putting those appointments all together signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. So the next motion is the motion to accept the appointments that were previously read in, and that motion was made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker. So, roll call.
Okay. McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney. Alderman Chesney, do you approve?
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, so on to item number 6, which is, and that's just for the sake of the viewing camera, they can't see. So, on to item number 6, which is the second reading of ordinance 2017-48. Madam Clerk, would you please read that for the record?
An ordinance amending Part 10 Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, adding Chapter 1034 Outdoor Parklets to the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport, Illinois, revised June 13, 2017. A motion to forward this ordinance to the June 12, 2017 Committee of the Whole was given by Alderperson Busker, seconded by Alderperson Clem, and approved by majority vote at the City Council meeting on June 5, 2017.
Any further discussion on this ordinance?
Mayor?
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask City Manager Crowe if any changes have been made, if you were still intent on leaving it with food for purchase with alcohol served on these parklets.
That is correct. The changes I made were dealing with, I stepped in because Alex was off having a child here that we put this together. It's to define the premises and the size based upon the discussion as to the size of the premise, and then it'll also be bordered by a removable barrier, nature to be determined by the owner. We did leave the food in there as a consumption. I believe that was the direction that I had taken from council. Additionally, we increased the insurance to $1 million per occurrence, which I believe was also the direction that was given to me from the council.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, and this is a question, Manager Crowe, just on procedure. Historically, what we do with amendments, we would make a motion to adopt the amendments, and then there would be a second, and then there would be either a voice vote or a roll call vote. So I think procedurally what we should do is we should make a motion to accept the amendments as presented in ordinance 2017-48. Attorney, is that the proper procedure if we've had amendments to the original motion and second to move it forward? Okay.
Mayor,
Alderman Bradshaw.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the amendments.
Second.
We have a motion to accept the amendments on ordinance 2017-48 made by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman Keister. Any further discussion on those amendments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll on the acceptance of the amendments?
McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Bradshaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
So now before you is the ordinance with the amendments. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
I had a constituent call me on this, and I'm for it, but I think there's some things we need to be cautious of in it. And one of the things that he suggested highly, and I told him we had already talked about that, was the insurance issue. Simply because of if you would have an accident, hey, we all need to be covered in that. Second was, and I didn't get a chance to go out back and look, so please tell me if it's in there or if it isn't, on children, okay, kids. You know, no, go ahead, if they're in, out, you know what I mean, because of being so easy that, you know, if you're sitting there, if a guy's sitting there with his wife and 2 kids and he's having a toddy and a burger or whatever, you know, and the kid runs out in the street, I'm just asking safety-wise, you know.
That's why I believe we moved, that I've added that there's a barrier to designate the actual premise. Here it's a removable barrier, so it's clear to identify both for the both for those that are using it to enjoy their whatever they're doing, and as well as the owner of the property. And then it also allows the police, if they were in the area, to have it clearly defined, so that there was both consideration from safety as well as enforcement.
Follow, Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem?
And I know in here, which is good, I mean, it's being looked at and improved by a couple of people. It isn't something that's just, well, there it is. So, no, I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Smith?
Mr. Crowe, I think I heard you say that the ordinance provides for the owner of the parklet to decide the nature of the barriers. And I guess my concern would be that we wouldn't permit, for instance, a construction fence to be used to define the barriers for a parklet. And I know that this ordinance also gives you a great deal of latitude in terms of approval, so I wonder if you could give us just a thumbnail on your position on that.
Well, it's interesting because that actually, when I was putting the premises together, that actually went through my mind. Do we want to see a construction barrier out there? And I felt that I had to give some latitude to the business owners that they were going to be using some of their own good judgment as we go forward to make something that was attractive, but they do have to give a design as to how they're going to do this in the plans, and that's one of the discussions when they submit this to community development and to myself for approval. They have to talk about those plans, so I figured that we could have that discussion back and forth, and that as we go forward and really defining what their barriers, because I actually had that same concern. Are we going to see, are they going to come down to Public Works and pick up barriers and just throw it up there? And that's not really what what our desire is here, but I don't want to also I want to give them the option of not having to construct a 6-foot barrier around a permanent 6-foot barrier as they go forward with this, so.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Director Crowe. What type of barriers do the other cities basically use?
You see various things from potted plants to wood barriers that are placed logs to identify what the area is. They're basically movable you can basically roll them in and out. That's the concept behind them. So it's really delineates the premise, portable barriers, and one that if we needed to do street work that can be easily removed.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2017-48 in its amended version?
McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Bradshaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Flem.
Aye.
I would just like to say thank you to the council members for passing this and being forward-thinking. Even though we don't have anybody knocking at our door to get this done tomorrow, I hope that it encourages our local businesses to go in that direction. So thank you for that.
Mayor,
Yes.
excuse me. So we had a motion for just the amendments. Did we have a motion to approve the ordinance then?
That's what you just did.
That was from first reading. Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to item number 7, is the first reading of ordinance 2017-50. Madam Clerk, could you please read that into the record?
An ordinance amending Title II Business Regulation, Chapter 876, Residential Real Property Regulations, Section 867.08 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport, Illinois, regarding annual registration fee. A draft of this ordinance was reviewed at the June 12, 2017 Committee of the Whole and moved forward upon a motion made by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman Smith. Manager Crowe will present this.
Yes, Manager Crowe.
So what this does is it takes our current rental ordinances and removes the fee from the chart from that for registration from the period of April 30th to June 1st, makes it free, and it's to encourage registration and from the landlords. And if they register outside the June 1st, then they will be charged at $50 per unit outside the registration. But it will be opening up at the end of April and go through the 1st of June. Additionally, at the request of our OV attorney, where they can expressly consent to the sufficiently mailed service process for purpose of administrative adjudication proceedings in accordance with this section. Basically what this does is this allows us to, at the registered address where they registered themselves as the landlord where they are living at, they can receive a notification of an OV violation at that residence as well as the rental residence. You'll see OV violations going both places, and that will be enough to be certified as the in court as meeting the requirements for notification of OV violation, ordinance violations for laymen.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
if I may, I'd like to ask several questions because unfortunately, due to circumstances, I was not able to make the committee of the whole, so if I could have the indulgence. First of all, with the doing away of the fee, we're going to be able to absorb whatever costs are in the budget.
That is correct. That has been plugged into the budget that we just presented at the financial committee meeting. We've absorbed there's approximately $60,000 in reduction, but we've taken that into it, plus offsetting with the next ordinance we have come up.
Okay, thank you. And if I may continue?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The rest of the ordinance, as I understand, is going to remain the same as of right now?
That is correct, with the exception of the change that we've added to that allows easier prosecution of ordinance violations.
And one final question, if I may, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Notification that the fees are due. Well, actually, there's two questions. But notification of the fees that are due, and if
piggyback both of them. When does this go to effect? Because I know that fees have been paid already for this year. Are they going to be reimbursed? Are they going to continue? And this comes into effect next year?
This will go into effect in 18, registration, and there won't be, for the landlords, there will not be, because we are given that period of time from April 30th to June 1st, everybody should register during that time frame. There won't be you going out notifications. Makes it very simple. They have to register during that time frame. And what we're going forward, we're additionally training the receptionist, or excuse me, executive assistant, I've been corrected before, for community development to receive those registrations and make the registration in the database. We're also making some adjustments as we're going forward with how we're doing the database and handling it within community development.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, then I'd like to make a motion to move this forward.
Second. We have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney to move ordinance 2017-50 forward to the next regularly scheduled committee meeting. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance?
Mayor?
Alderman McClanahan.
Thank you. The only thing I note on this is there's a large consensus, and we've seen this throughout council meetings here, where there's a large consensus that one of our priorities, obviously, is neighborhoods as a whole going forward. Part of that's reflected in the budget that we were just talking about. I would note, and I think there's a large consensus too. What we're doing is we're making some adjustments to this, but what I believe at the end of the day is going to lead to a better product. So I'm in support of elimination of the fee with an increased penalty for failure to comply. I think that helps target one of the main issues that we were looking to address, or that they were looking to address initially. And then two, I'm confident that with Manager Crow in the implementation portion, we'll be able to have a better, more efficient project than the current structure that we were talking about. So that's why I'd be in support of that. But I would also note going forward, we've seen, and I think Manager Crow has mentioned this, mentioned it probably in a variety of settings. Usually the best product that gets the best results has been a combination of the city working with the various entities and talking with the various entities. So I'd encourage as we go forward and we're crafting whatever we think that the end product is down the road, that we do have those discussions with those entities, because you get a broader exchange of ideas, broader perspectives, and I think you eliminate some of the blind spots that when we're just dealing with ourselves, we inherently don't see.
And that's my goal going forward, is to work with the Landlords Association and the government representative in dealing with the best way to move forward with this, as well as so that we can both meet the desires of the city as well as the goals of the landlords.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, I do have one question. I said that we're gonna, shall be subject to a late fee of $50 per unit. Okay, fine. What type of enforcement is gonna be put in place if this person does not pay the $50 per unit?
Well, they'll be prosecuted as an ordinance violation, so they will be notified. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to work very closely with the reorganization, looking at the water and sewer bills, looking at how people are registering the properties, look at old properties, and also doing some checking with the courthouse how the properties are registered. And that's some of the reorganizations we're going forward within the community development to actually pick up some of that, so that it's a single point of contact within community development, and it's not spread across both police and community development.
Okay, now, but do we have an ordinance in place right now for this, or do we have to come up with one?
So this is about to enforce it. This in itself, resulting in the fine, can be enforced unless I'm missing the question. I'm not understanding the question. So the $50 late fee, as we go through and check rental properties and check previous rental properties, and we do this actually requires legwork from the city staff in checking going down and working with the water department, water and sewer department, going over to, and working with the registration over at the county courthouse as we go forward to identify additional rental properties that may not be listed, then that qualifies under the late fee requirements.
Okay, so, but basically what I was asking is that you give them the $50, should we say fine, and they don't pay it, how will we enforce it?
Well, that becomes an issue for our attorney for the ordinance, as we take it forward for the ordinance violations. So, and we prosecute as we do with many of the ordinance violations at an administrative hearing.
Okay.
Mayor.
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. Alderman Ross, if I may be so bold, I think they're going to handle it the way they have it before with enforcements when they've taken landlords to court for non-payment of fees for the $19 registration fee and or non-payment of ordinance violations. It'll be along the same structure. I believe they'll use the same legal people probably to take them to court. That's my supposition on that, but I'm supposing it'll be similar to that. Manager Crowe, I had a question. I realize that you're new to all this with this registration and everything, and a lot of it was done electronically by email notification. One of the complaints you heard this evening was by a landlady who did not receive any notification that she owed any fees whatsoever. Some of this stuff does happen. It falls through the cracks. People that don't have computers, or they are, maybe not as computer literate as some people, or they prefer the snail mail method or some other way of notification. And you did mention that the water sewer has ways to interact with some of this, and my suggestion, perhaps in the future, there might be a way to just on everyone's water bills, right, if this is a landlord property, realize that your fees are due or your registrations are due by June 1st, and those who do not pay will face the fine. Because there again, if it's just like a little printout on the water bill, any landlord that receives those water bill or any tenants would know that those fees would be due soon. Thank you.
We can work that way. I've also passed working with a program in another community. We send out letters that's coming up, reminding everybody that this open window for registration is coming up. And hopefully after we get into doing this, and we're going to do the news campaign and let everybody know that this is free registration from the 30th to the 1st, and this is everybody's comes in, and we're hoping to simplify that because it's now this open window that they can come in and do this registration.
Mayor.
Alderman Buster.
Yeah, along with that, I was thinking about, do we have the technology once the landlords register with a cell phone number, or I imagine most everyone has a cell phone number, to just do a robo-text out to everybody that the upcoming registration is opening up? Do we have the technologies to do that?
Alex is shaking. He's the guy that's going to have to put this together. So, yeah. So as we go forward, but we do have that technology.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I'll probably be the only person voting against this, and I'll give a couple reasons why, but I'm not going to get real excited about it. Part of this is doing away with the fee that was structured a number of years ago. Where I worked with Connor Brown, I worked with Terry Heilman, worked with people from Fala. There were pros and cons. We talked about tonight going on using the water and sewer software. Water and sewer software couldn't be used, number one. Number two, we didn't buy the accounting package for it, so we went out and chose to buy this other accounting package. There was a fair amount of stuff. I realize where you're going with this and do not totally have a problem with the end result in it. However, this is about half of it. We're talking about in the next one to eliminate 2 people. Then we're talking about we're going to add another person. And then we're talking about we're going to change things around, and we're maybe going to do some inspections and look at this. But all of that from about here on over is currently pie in the sky. So like I say, I don't back it. There were reasons that it was put in. I mean, if we asked for figures from the police department and said, where's most of your crime at, as far as rental, as far as residential units, I'm sure it's gonna come from rental units. I don't think it's the answer to eliminate the fees, but that's just my opinion. I'm one person. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney, to move ordinance 2017-50 onto second reading by an automatic layover for the next scheduled city council meeting. So moving on to number 8, we have the first reading of ordinance 2017-51. Madam Clerk, could you read this into the record?
An ordinance amending Title 10 Employment Provisions, Chapter 290, Compensation and Benefits, Section 2910.01 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport, Illinois regarding classification plan. A draft of this ordinance was reviewed at the June 12, 2017 Committee of the Whole and moved forward upon a motion made by Alderperson Chesney, seconded by Alderperson McClanathan.
City Manager Crowe, would you like to?
There are two amendments. This was pointed out to me by the alderman that we need to make 2 amendments to this. So, so we're actually eliminating several positions that had been previously voted on, starting with paralegal and the city attorney and the corporate counsel employs the Water and Sewer Commission, also eliminated. But under professional group, I would like to propose to the council the with the exception, adding this language with the exception of the transit program compliancy officer after the dot, which is number 3, because we are keeping the transit program compliancy oversight monitor, and he's a part-time official. And the other one is under 6, we have struck out with the exception of residential rental police liaison. I'd like to add back in with the exception of the evidence officer as that ordinance. So those are 2 modifications, and I'll let if those need to be made, a motion to modify that accordingly on the first reading.
Mayor,
Alderman Brashaw.
I would like to make a motion for approval of those, but first may I ask Clerk Anderson if she has all that down?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the modifications amendments.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have an amendment to ordinance 2017-51 as stated by Manager Crowe, and it was made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman McClanathan. Any further discussion on the amendments only?
Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
do we have the amended versions of the documents?
No, it was pointed out to me this morning that we had eliminated some language that made it more difficult to read. So I will have the amended version for the second reading, and that as we go forward.
Well, because I'm kind of at a loss to understand the distinction between what I'm looking at and what you just described, that's all.
If I may. Now, if you look on paragraph D3, where the heading says professional group 40 hours a week, on page 3 of 5, the bottom portion of page 3 of 5. If you look at D3, the stricken language is with the exception of the rental property crime-free housing specialist. If you look then on 3, subparagraph 8, or class grade 18 there, you still have a less than 40-hour a week thing. So that amendment on that puts in the language with the exception of the transit program compliance oversight monitor. And then on D6, the only change on that, D6 where it begins police department group, it had stricken with the exception of the residential rental registration police liaison and then left in evidence officer, just to have it read a little cleaner. The amendment is to have it with the exception of the evidence officer, that's all.
So rather than redact the words with the exception, the amendment adds that back in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what this does is this eliminates other positions that we've previously the council had approved, as well as adding the 2 additional positions that we had. So as we go, we were going to announce previously the restructuring it. We are adding we're reorganizing the community development position. There is going to be a new director of community development, and Alex is going to be taking over both the neighborhood, both with the demo program, as well as overseeing and being a liaison with the police department as we go forward with this into that position. So we're still working out all of the structures as we go forward. The rental registration is also going to be taken over by the executive assistant. We've already talked to her about that. She's moving forward in those trainings. So we're eliminating these positions, trying to make it a smoother, cleaner, and then we're having somebody that is focused not only on rental, but neighborhoods and blight reduction. And the nuisance director will be working for Alex, and there'll be also a relationship with the building and zoning director within the community development. So that's how we're going to pick this up. I had that discussion with the police chief as well as Director Mills, and Nancy's going to move into the position of the community development director, community and economic development director, and had that discussion. We would have seen that earlier outside of the discussion today, but I didn't have an opportunity to actually sit down yet with Alex until Friday because of the birth of his child. So, and then the 3 of us are going to sit down and actually work the formal structure going forth. But I had talked to police chief about this as we go forward. So this is how we're going to handle this.
Congratulations.
Mayor?
Who just asked? Alderman Keister.
Yeah, I guess that explains the question I was going to have. But one of my concerns is, I guess, one of the employees now that's an executive assistant, or whatever we'll call it, is going to be taking on more responsibility. And from what I've seen, most of the employees in this that we have in the city already have enough responsibilities, and putting more on top of somebody else, I kind of have a problem with that. Having Director Mills move up and take care of that, and demolition, I don't have a problem with that. But heaping more on employees right now that have more than they signed on to begin with, I do have a problem with that.
I'm trying to, as we move forward, I'm trying to streamline. Go ahead.
If I could, our administrative assistant, who's out here usually would be the person taking over these duties, and she's been doing a phenomenal job since she's come over from being a 911 dispatcher. And we've discussed whether she'd be able to absorb these or not, and she believes she can, and as do I, and I think others. And I have no doubt she'd be able to handle it very well with the talent she's displayed so far here.
And the changes are really set up to really address what the council has told me to go forward and focus not only on rental, but as all of the communities and neighborhoods, and bring everybody into code compliancy, and really address the issues of blight, and really work towards the concept of the broken window. And that's Alex's first, and by taking somebody in that direction position and putting them down, and I don't mean by putting them down, moving them into that position, I'm sorry, Alex, moving them into that position that truly focuses on both neighborhood blight as well as the rental properties. We believe that we'll have a more focused effort as we go forward, because we have a full-time person versus 2 part-time people that may not be fully focused at all the times on those issues.
One part of final vote, Mayor.
Actually, we really need to get back to the amendment that's on the floor. So if you can hold off on that until after, actually the amendment that's on the floor right now with the first and the second is on the amendments that Manager Crow Crowe had placed. So is there any further discussion on the amendments only? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll on the amendments only for ordinance 2017?
McClanathan.
Aye.
Sorry.
Okay.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
No.
Oh, that's an N. Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, so now before us then is the amended version. Is there any discussion on the
There.
amended versions?
There.
Alderman Keister.
We're doing a lot of changes that involve the landlord ordinance and stuff, and like we talked about with the last ordinance on the fees. But are we going to be looking at the overall ordinance itself? Because there are some issues and stuff there with it that we've heard tonight, and I've heard from a number of different constituents, as far as notification, as far as some of the information maybe being available to them to help make a decision as to whether they're going to rent to these people and stuff. That's the biggest complaint I've heard, is just information is not available to them. You know, that they don't see any benefit from it because it doesn't give them another resource to be able to say, no, they don't want to rent to this person, or yes, they're a good person to rent. Are we going to be addressing that down the road?
Well, one of the things is I believe that placing it under a full-time, everybody that's involved in this program will be on full-time. Individuals will make that information flow better. And as I want to work with the Landlord Association and look at the overall ordinance as we go forward, and so that it meets more closely their both the council's desires as well as what they are looking for within the ordinance. I want to work very closely with their government, with the president of the Landlords Association, as well as their government representative, myself, and Director Miles as we go forward.
Follow up, Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
I just want to say that I've seen firsthand the benefit of this ordinance, because there were some difficulties in my neighborhood that, due to this ordinance, is gone now and wouldn't have been otherwise. But I do have to express a concern to the constituents that talk to me, and I hope that we can address this, and if I can help in any way, I will do so.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion for moving forward to second reading the ordinance 2017-51 for the amended version for second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Chesney on the amended version of 2017-51, so that will be laid over, an automatic layover for the next regularly scheduled meeting. On to item number 9. We have the first reading of ordinance 2017-52. Madam Clerk, would you please read that into the record?
An ordinance amending various sections within Title VI, Administration of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Freeport, Illinois, to provide a residency requirement for city department heads and to provide for the appointment of department heads by the city manager.
Thank you. Manager Crowe.
Yes, this is an ordinance to bring everything in line with the city manager form of government, as well as added the residency. The one modification is the commencing. It was supposed to commence July 1st because of the length that it's taken to get this ordinance straight. I am actually going to do my appointments of the directors on July 3rd, and because of that, all the dates where it says July 1st, I'd like to make a modification to go August 1st as amendments. That will allow me to appoint the current directors, but not make a residency requirement on the current directors, so that they're grandfathered into this. So before I go into the rest of the ordinance, I'd like to make that request for that amendment.
Mayor?
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, is that your only amendment that you're recommending at this time for this?
Yes, it is.
Mayor?
Alderman Brashaw.
I would like to make a motion to approve the amendment by Manager Crowe.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Busker, on the modification by Manager Crowe to amend it according to the July 3rd dates.
It would be August 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Go into effect August 1st.
August 1st.
August 1st. Okay, so Madam Clerk, could you take the, any further discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you take the roll on the amendment only?
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, now is there any discussion on ordinance 2017-52 as the amended version?
Motion to move forward.
Mayor,
Second.
Who made the motion?
Busker.
Busker and Keister. And Manager Crowe, did you have something you
Oh,
wanted?
I was just gonna say that this, what this does is this also aligns so that the changes that the council had done under the manager form of government with the consent and approval for both the police chief and fire chief is incorporated into this, and all of the other ones are hiring are under the manager form of government as we go forward, all requiring any future hires to live within the corporate limits of the city of Freeport.
Mayor,
Alderman Bradshaw?
thank you. I was just going to ask Manager Crowe to reiterate some of that and also to verify that anyone who is already living outside of the city limits that is a department head is kind of grandfathered in.
That is correct. The current department heads are grandfathered in. The first new hire that would fall into this would be the fire chief that we're advertising for currently. The water and sewer supervisor would also initially fall into this, but we are going to, that's the next move, is to reorganize how that department has its public works structure.
Follow?
Alderman Bradshaw?
So if you hired somebody before August 1st, they'd be grandfathered in?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
with that in light, should we suspend the rules to move on this now, or?
I don't know if that's necessary, is there? No.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
I completely agree with everything you've got in here on the first part of it about the changing of position, so on and so forth. I do not go along with the part of somebody living in Freeport, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, I don't think legally that you can enforce it. And number two is, you've got the police chief tonight talking to police officers about other things that they can do from hiring them from outside places. I mean, the two are contradictory to each other. You've got a whole bunch of people living outside the city of Freeport to work in the city of Freeport, but yet you're saying that your managers can't live in Freeport. Now, I realize, I'm smart enough to realize that I've been around here long enough to know that there's about 5 out of 7 aldermen here that want people to live in Freeport. That's absolutely wonderful. You got 5 votes there to vote the guy out if he's not from Freeport. I just personally think, now the lawyer can tell me if I'm full of BS, but I've seen this happen on a school board a number of years ago. I don't believe it's enforceable.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan?
First, I'd ask Attorney Zito, one, our residency requirements in other jurisdictions, and have they been upheld? And then two, my second question would be directed to Manager Crowe. If I believe this was actually brought by your recommendation for how you want to handle it, not from us, correct?
That is correct. It was brought from mine, and I've already had this discussion with the staff as they go forward. I think that was actually a discussion I had the staff that was my desire, is to have everybody live in the city limits from the director point. Once their replacements as they move forward, I had that within the first 2 weeks of my position here. My feeling is you really understand the issues within Freeport and really go forward with the attitude, this is your community, you need to live within that community. And I have had several discussions with the attorney, but I'll let him answer that as to whether this is legally enforceable. I know with the unions it is not. But this is the director's position, or the police chief or the fire chief.
And our office did look into this, and residency requirements have been enforceable in other communities. Rockford is one of them, where they have some form of residency requirement here. As Ro mentioned, it's a different story if you're talking about a group that's represented under a collective bargaining agreement there, but we're talking about department heads at this point, so I believe this would be enforceable.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
if I remember correctly, and Alderman Clem, if you can help me out maybe, years ago when I started on the fire department, I think there was a residency for department heads. And for some reason, during that period of time, it was eliminated because it was found to be unenforceable, or there was too many people that lived outside the city that couldn't move in or wouldn't move in or something, and it was dropped. So I have to kind of express Alderman Clem's concerns that I'm not sure how practical that is if we're not forcing or trying to force the rest of the employees to live in town, having the department heads live in town. I'm not sure how fair that is, and I don't know if I'd be in favor of it at this time.
Madam Chair, or Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Yeah. Manager, hey, I agree 100% with what you said. Please believe me. I don't have a problem with. I think that everybody should be in town, live in town. But I have to also say to you, right now, how many do we have that are from out of town? I believe there's 4. You're you and the police chief and Director Dole.
The police chief lives outside the.
Excuse me, the fire chief. I'm sorry. Okay. You're talking about there's only 2 or 3 that do it. I just think it's a wonderful thing, and it all sounds good, but I can tell you this, if I was sitting there with a dynamic young engineer that lived in German Valley, and you wanted to hire him for job Z, and after August 1st, would he come under some other requirements?
Well,
I'm just using that as an example, and
at that point, if we had a particular candidate, what we do is we go back to council and ask for a waiver to the policy. And that's the way we would go about hiring. If it's the best candidate, this establishes it, and we go forward and ask for a waiver as we go forward. But this puts it into a decision, so the council has that decision to waive it.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. When we discussed this, Alderman Clem, on the city manager, there was no dissent on requiring residency, nor was there concern on the enforcement. When we discussed what the city manager's role would be, the concern that did come out of committee is perhaps nobody would want to come to Freeport. And what we found was there was over 40 applicants that wanted to come to Freeport. And amongst those that were in the finalist was a gentleman that had 2 master's degrees, was willing to move here, bought a house within 3 weeks, and is a 30-year naval captain. I think that oftentimes we're selling our city short. It's no disparaging remarks of our current leadership or department heads. I've always maintained my position since the day I've been on the council. I think that as a department head, if you were going to lead the day-to-day, I want him or her to hit the same pothole and deal with the same crime elements as I do. And I think that how would you feel if a governor of our state was to live in Indiana? It would never work. And I think the people that lead our city and those that make the decisions that affect 25,000 lives need to root for Aquin or the pretzels, in my view. And I think that the majority opinion of the public is behind us in this position. The only concern that I think has been raised, I think was put to rest under our application and RFP for city manager was perhaps we would not find people that would be enticed to move to Freeport. Not only did we pay Manager Crow a competitive wage, but we had 43 applicants and 5 finalists, to which many people were willing to even move from out of state to come to the city of Freeport to lead this. And I think that the same could be said for the department heads. So I support the measure. I'm happy that we're doing it, and I think it's long overdue. But that's my opinion.
Madam Mayor, that was a really, really, really good analogy of selecting the city manager. I agree with you, and I was one of the person that said, the guy's got to live in Freeport. We're talking a city manager. We aren't talking department heads. I think there's a little bit of difference there. That's my feeling at least. You can say everybody's gotta drink our water and we gotta go rah-rah for Aquin and yay for the pretzels, but you know, like I'll go back to once more and say to you, you guys got the votes, it does make a bit of difference.
Okay, is there anything new anyone wants to discuss?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanahan.
you had previous experience, Manager Lowell, or seeing between you and your colleagues. I don't know if it was like it's a Monmouth, but seeing it in other municipalities and how it's worked.
It's interesting, when I went forward, I talked to many of my constituents about this, or I should say, not constituents, but many of my fellow city managers, and they all feel that this is really important as we move forward. In Monmouth, every single one of our department heads lived within the city, and I'll tell you that Monmouth had less, and I'm not disparaging the community, but it was a community of 9,800. It was the closest city was 58 miles away, and every single one of the department heads lived within the city limits. As we go forward, and I understand. So you understand that, you know, under the water, already on the applications for both the fire chief and the water and sewer director, I think there is only one candidate for water and sewer that has indicated that he wouldn't move, and every single one of the fire chiefs, and we've had applications from throughout the state that said they would move to Freeport, and we did make that a requirement. We didn't make it a requirement of water and sewer. We encouraged them that would be put priority on that. Fire chiefs, we said that it was required, and we've had, I think, Chief, we've had at least 3 outstanding candidates. The deputy, you know, I can't talk about them here, but we've had some that would be outstanding moving here. So,
Would you follow up, Mayor? So would you say your experience in Monmouth, as well as the majority feedback from your colleagues and the city manager of profession, is what led you to bring this recommendation to us?
It was.
Mayor, just one final comment. When our city manager Crowe mentioned about if somebody's really qualified, we'll make an exception. If we're going to do this, I would have a lot of difficulty with making any exception, because to me it would be kind of slap in the face that the people that we've already forced to come in here now, well, this guy's more qualified, and we're going to give him an exception. If we do this, and I'm not sure I'm in favor of it, but if we do this, there shouldn't be any exceptions, because I think that's going to cause nothing but problems and animosity from the people who are already going to be here. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it.
Mayor.
Alderman Brasher.
Thank you. I agree with Alderman Keister. He's really surprised.
As do I.
And I take the council's pleasure at this, and as they go forward. So we will, if we adopt this, there will not be any exceptions.
Follow up, Mayor.
Alderman Brasher.
Thank you. I always tell my constituents that as an alderman of 6th Ward, I have to live in my ward. As somebody over here said, I drive through, I hit every pothole they hit. I see every tree with branches falling. I see sidewalks in disrepair. I see any litter. I see the problems, and that's what I try to get fixed. Department heads, I think it's important that they're all in, like the rest of us are. They get paid quite a bit more than the aldermen do, believe it or not. We use your money, we use the taxpayers' money to pay these department heads, and we try to pay them well. With what we have in the city coffers, of course, we may not pay what every community does, but we try to come up with competitive wages. We like to see that money recirculated in our community, because every dollar spent within Freeport usually recirculates at least 4 times. So it's very important to keep these wages and the money local, including the department head wages that for the people that purchase their homes, they're paying into the tax base as well. So they know how important it is for us to try to keep those taxes at bay. We've been trying not to do tax rate increases, and we've held that levy now for several years. So, anyhow, that's my 2 bits on it. I'm all in Freeport. I have to live in my ward. I have to live here, and I hope any new department heads that hire also will live in this city. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion made by Alderman Buster, seconded by Alderman Keister, to move this amended version of ordinance 2017-52 forward to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. So on to item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance 2017-53. Madam Clerk, would you please read this into the record?
Special ordinance for variation, permit, or amendment of codified ordinances of Freeport, Illinois. This ordinance is requesting approval of a special use permit for Signature Lounge located at 225 West Main Street in Freeport.
Director Mills, would you want to explain this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. There was a petition filed with the Community Development Department in May for a special use permit to allow a tavern at 225 West Main Street in Freeport. That property is zoned B1-2, General Retail Business District. And so after all the notice requirements were met, there was a public hearing held at the June 8th regular meeting of the Planning Commission at 6:30. The petitioner was there to represent, along with an attorney, represent their case to be granted a special use permit to operate a tavern, as well as the opportunity for anyone who opposed to present their side. And then the planning commissioners had the opportunity to ask additional questions and then discuss among themselves and make findings. The ordinance you have before you tonight represents their recommendation that City Council approve the special use. There was a vote 5 in favor, unanimous by the Planning Commission. This would be approval of a special use permit to allow a tavern at 225 West Main Street. And the suggested, or the findings of fact, rather, from the Planning Commission are found on page 3, Exhibit A. I will read through those very briefly here. The establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare, and that a tavern must follow City of Freeport ordinances regarding the sale, consumption, and possession of alcoholic liquor, as well as related ordinances regarding illegal or disorderly activities on or about the premises, and a tavern must be granted and maintain a liquor license in order to operate as such. The second finding of fact, the special use will not be injurious to the enjoyment of other property in the immediate area for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood in that property in the immediate area operated as permitted during the prior operation of 225 West Main Street as a tavern, and future operation of 225 West Main as a tavern should likewise not affect the enjoyment, value, or operation of other property within the area. The third finding of fact, the establishment of the special use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of adjacent property for uses permitted in the district, in that the reactivation of vacant space will complement future development in the district and is in line with development as envisioned in the city's comprehensive plan. Mayor.
Just a quick clarification on procedure. My understanding was for special ordinance variations that if it passed unanimously out of planning, that it would move right to second reading for immediate passage. I believe that's how we've done it in the past.
No. If it's voted on and we pass it unanimous, it immediately goes through.
It goes through tonight.
Yeah, if you pass it unanimously.
If this body passes it unanimously, otherwise it would have to go to a second reading, I believe.
Right, so I'm looking at the city code right now regarding first reading and laying over, and that typically with ordinances, there's a first read, first motion made, second, it automatically lays over. However, there are a couple of exceptions. Council may take final action on a proposed ordinance at first reading in the 2 following instances. And instance number 1 is if the proposed ordinance has had a proper public hearing at the Planning Commission or ZBA, and the ordinance would grant a special use permit or a variance to the requirements of the zoning code, a change in zoning to any parcel, a planned unit development, or an amendment to the zoning code, and the reporting agency unanimously recommended its approval, and no person filed a formal written objection or protest to such ordinance, which would require a supermajority vote by the council for its enactment under provisions of 1242.12 I1 of the planning and zoning code there. So here it looks like this did come with a unanimous consent, correct?
Correct.
And no one filed any formal Objection?
No.
Then this looks like it would go to, the council may take final action on this ordinance.
Mayor?
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. Give me 1 second here while I gather my thoughts. Community Development Director Alex Mills. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. It happens here. So embarrassing. I realize that when you have a public hearing, we can only ask you questions pertaining to what happened at the public hearing and what was said at the public hearing. So at the public hearing, did they name the former name of this building? Am I allowed to ask?
Yes, they named it several times.
So this
It was Munsey's.
Yeah, okay, so this is the building formerly known as Munsey's. And I understand at the public hearing there was one dissent, and if so, can you explain that to us?
I can. An individual representing the Masonic Temple, which is across from City Hall here, and also would be kitty corner, as it were, from this 225 West Main Street, objected to a special use being granted. He noted that when Munsey's was operated, there were many fights, problems with beer bottles, and basically strongly opposed anything being in that building, in his words. Again, he stressed seeing fights and drinking happening, and he did not feel that it was conducive to the city's image.
Mayor, may I do a follow-up? Thank you. And Director Mills, were the new owners or the new proprietors named at the public hearing?
Yes, and if I may, that the petitioner had the opportunity to rebut those statements. He stated that he wouldn't have bouncers, but actual security staff be serving food at this location. He noted that he has a different background than the previous owner had. He described this as a family-oriented place with food and music, and that he personally wasn't worried about the past operation of the space, as he is a different operator.
Follow-up, Mayor, one more time. Thank you. So in your opinion, Director Mills, based on what you heard at this public hearing, did this person have a substantial business plan for this new venue?
I don't think it would be my place to state my opinion of that their presentation at the hearing. That was what the Planning Commission was there to hear and vote on. However, I can say that in the staff report, reviewing their petition and everything, the staff recommendation was in favor of the special use. So that information was given to the Planning Commission. They also listened to the objections and to the petitioner at the hearing, and then they gave to you as City Council their recommendation for approval.
Okay, so substantiate my question. Did they present a business plan to you or to the city?
I would say that they presented elements of how they would be running, managing, and operating this business. Not a business plan per se with dollars and things like that involved, but I believe that there were enough details given to describe how it would be operated.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
just real quickly, a statement. I understand where Alderperson Bradshaw is coming from, and I agree. I remember the fiascos with Munsey's and what happened down there, and I actually was down there several times at night and witnessed some of it myself, just because I've heard about it and wanted to see what was going on. However, we do have to keep in mind the people that ran Munsey's at that time are not the ones that are applying for this permit at this time. We have an empty building downtown that somebody is going to be able to take and convert into a useful building, and a business in this town is going to be bringing in revenue, which we desperately need. New people, new business, I think we deserve to give them a shot and see what happens. If there's problems, we can always shut them down if we have to. But I think we at least deserve to give them a chance. And I make a motion that we approve this ordinance.
I'll second that.
Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
so if I might ask, if this was operated as a licensed premise in the past, why are they applying, or why do they need a special use permit or a variance here?
So what we found in our research doing the staff report is that this was operated continuously as a bar back to at least 1974 from what I could find. I believe it was the Union Hall Club, and then Cherokee Tap, and then Munsey's. What happened when Munsey's had their license revoked is that it stayed out of business, essentially. That use as a tavern was abandoned for over 12 months, and the fact that the owner didn't reapply for a liquor license or anything was also
considered abandoning it. Where that wrinkle comes into play is that the city's zoning ordinance was passed in 1977. There's a provision in there that states that if you abandon that use, you have to reapply and go through all the steps that somebody starting fresh would have to do. That's what happened here, because it was essentially all these years of non-conforming use up until they quit using it. And it sat long enough, now they have to start fresh.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Alderman Keister, I appreciate what you said about starting a new business, given the guy a chance, so on and so forth. The part of this that really bothers me is one thing. He was given a liquor license based on the premise, tell me if I'm wrong, Chief, that he has to have security there. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly positive why he was given the liquor license, but we met with him and was anxious to hear about his recommendations based on our concerns. I too, like Alderman Keister, witnessed some of the shenanigans down there, not because I was curious, because I was in the mix of it. And for years, and I think that I could offer some good suggestions on how to curtail some of that. He listened to that and then offered up, some points and ways to abate those kind of problems.
Mayor?
Well, actually, Madam Clerk, do you recall that meeting? Was there a contingency on that license, or was it just a recommendation?
Recommendation.
That's what I thought.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. I would pose this question to Director Mills or perhaps Manager Crow. If there's a new owner for a building, why would there be discussions on security? Why is that any different than somebody would open up across the street? Why is this property stigmatized now? Because if it has fresh ownership and there's a new business plan, why are we discussing security here? I mean, if we were to carry on that conversation or carry over that conversation, we should have security conversations on every special use permit as it pertains to liquor. Aren't we unfairly targeting a specific property that has had problems, but it's completely unrelated to the particular owner? So why is this security concern any more than the next bar?
Actually, he put that, the new owner put that in there as part of his plan. So that's where it became just as a recommendation, not a requirement. He put it in.
And one of the comments he made in the public hearing was he understands that he's going to have to overcome the long-standing relation, the stigma that bar has, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted to set the precedence right from the very beginning with security as he went forward. So that was why he was identifying the security.
Right, he wanted to acknowledge that he knew he had a hard road, but he was going to do everything he could to change that.
Good.
Follow up if I could.
Alderman Clem.
So in other words, he basically came forward and said, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
That's correct. That's what he laid out at the public hearing.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now just for clarification, Alderman Keister, you have a motion. Was that with the intent of final passage since we do meet those requirements?
That is correct, ma'am.
Any further discussion on this ordinance for final passage?
Mayor?
Madam Clerk?
I missed the second on that. Who seconded?
The second was Ross. Oh. Well, they both said it at the same time.
So
I gave it to her.
We're going with Ross. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Just based upon the fact that the security was offered by him coming forward, that will change my opinion on the vote on it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Ross, to take this as a final passage of ordinance 2017-53. So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
I'm sorry. Are we doing suspension, or you're moving it to the next meeting?
No, actually, we meet the requirements by Attorney Zito that we
You did,
postpone the-
sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. On passage, McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, on to item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2017-54. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
Resolution 2017-36. Resolution of the City of Freeport, Illinois, authorizing the amendment of the city loan to the Freeport Area Economic Development Foundation.
Wait. Number 11. Yep.
Should be the transfer.
Number 11.
Yeah, you went on to 12.
Oh, goodness, that's where I put the votes. Okay. Sorry about that. Ordinance 2017-54, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2014-46 to add portions of Pearl City Road to the City of Freeport's municipal street system and approving a local agency agreement for jurisdictional transfer.
City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is to clear up a prior ordinance, 2014-46. I believe only Alderman Clem and Brashaw were here at that time, so I'll give you a brief introduction. 2014, between myself and the then county highway department, entered into an agreement to transfer the jurisdictional boundaries of Forest Road and Fairgrounds Road to the county in exchange for Pearl City Road, and that was basically due to what had kind of been already transpired a couple years before of maintenance. It's easier for them to handle the larger highways, outskirts of town, so to speak, or Pearl City Road. We technically would get several questions from our constituents as to why we weren't doing the maintenance and things in our city limits. So that intergovernmental agreement went forward, and the transfer took place for both Forest Road and for Fairgrounds Road. However, the DOT at the time reviewed and rejected the terminus that we put on for Pearl City Road. We had agreed to extend that out to Highland South entrance, and they wanted it to stop at the roundabout. Also, as part of that, we had agreed to a maintenance transfer because of the condition of Forest Road. So at the time, we agreed to purchase hot mix material for the county to then repave Forest Road. So we would have the materials, and they would provide the labor. However, upon execution of that portion of the agreement, the county elected to continue paving beyond the limits of the jurisdictional transfer up to a sum of almost $49,000 for the hot mix. So we did carry that expense. Moving this forward now in 2017, we elected to build and reconstruct part of the right-of-way on Pearl City Road, so it was of utmost importance to get this transfer concluded. It had just sat pending for 2 years, waiting for a new highway, county highway department to select a new leader, as well as some changes downstate. So in this agreement, it is to transfer, as the DOT recommended, to end Pearl City's terminus for the city at the roundabout. So we would own the roundabout and all its jurisdiction, as well as anything you wanted to put in the center of the island, which I believe there are some interesting votes on that. So we would have jurisdiction over that. In exchange, that does shorten what the county was supposed to receive. So we actually negotiated back and forth on the $49,000. Since they get a little bit more highway that they have to keep, we dropped that and removed out some of the expenses that we incurred, and that balance came to the county owing us $9,400.26 with the additional hot mix that was used on Forest Road. So ultimately, the transfer, I think, is in the best benefit of the city of Freeport, still was. The limits, I think, actually are to our advantage because we end at the roundabout, and since it's a circular intersection, we can simply turn around and go back where we came from. Other than excluding Marvin Lane, Forest Road did get paved, and I believe we've been made whole by this transfer of $9,048.26 back to the city.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Engineer Gallagher, is time of the essence on this? Do you need to get this moving, or?
My understanding is the county will not vote on this until after our July 3rd meeting, so we can wait and take second reading, or you can choose to pass it tonight. It will make no difference.
Motion move forward.
Second.
Engineer Gallagher, just one question. You stated that the county then is to compensate roughly $9,000. Is there a date as far as when that would be compensated?
When this goes into effect, so once it's approved by the down in Springfield, they should be cutting us a check. That's, I think there's the actual date is in the agreement that it moves forward. It's supposed to be in there somewhere, but yes, upon execution actually of the document Exhibit A, then we should receive a check thereafter.
Do we need to put that in there, or is it?
It's in the clauses, a part of Supplement B as well. So legally, I believe it's just as binding as anything else.
Okay, Mayor, when you get that.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Engineer Gallagher, how many new homes or businesses will be coming in with this?
It does not change the city limits. It only changes what we basically plow, maintain, get money for through MFT. MFT on the city side is population based, so it doesn't affect necessarily revenues. However, I think it's more for your constituents to understand that the road in front of them, if they live in the city of Freeport, is actually owned and maintained by the city of Freeport. As communities expand, it gets confusing when you have some of these outliers of a county highway through your center of town, and especially when we're the best to maintain it. So it's just a transfer of ownership of the right of way, not any new businesses or properties brought in with it.
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Brasher.
Thank you. And Engineer Gallagher, I understand there's several people that would like some new, maybe wildflowers or something planted in the roundabout, since it's been a little bushy lately.
Just to give council a background on that, the IDOT selected material in there would have been a grass, which we would have had to ultimately maintain. At the time, the county engineer had worked with an agreement with the Highlands Master Gardeners Club, and they provided all the labor. The county, I believe, paid for the plants, and the park district donated the mulch. Therefore, we've had zero maintenance on the center of this, and that was the goal, is to make it maintenance friendly. I get that the wild seasonal applications, it was supposed to be a spring, summer, fall application, I guess is in the eye of the beholder. However, that would be for us and the council's budget to change that in the future.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman
Are the, I guess, Manager Crow or Sean, Engineer Sean, have the papers basically been signed on this? It's just waiting for approval from two councils?
This has been approved by the state. I guess we somewhat did it backwards last time. Both the county and the city signed theirs, and then it was submitted to the state. Although the state had received several drafts, we never got any comments back to them until everything was signed and approved. In this case, we have everything approved on the state's end. It's for the two municipalities, the county and the city, to approve it. So once the county, we will effectively approve ours, then the county will approve it, and then it will be immediately approved upon their execution.
And you say that's going to happen on July 3rd or before?
Their meeting, I think, is the second week of July. I think I know where you're going with your question, and that's whether or not you can put a flagpole in the roundabout prior to the July 4th.
Yeah, that would be the question.
Yeah, you would be correct. Yes, we can. I've gotten approval from the county that they're okay with that.
If I could ask the council to think about moving this forward, just simply because a number of months ago, or probably close to a year ago, a lady, Millie Keith, brought up to the Korean War veterans about putting a flagpole in the middle of the roundabout. Clyde came to me, and since then, we've got the Korean War veterans, the VFW, Vietnam, and Freeport flagpole all lined up to put a flagpole with a 4x6 American flag and a 3x5 POW flag in. and we'd like to do this before the 4th of July.
Mayor.
Wasn't sure who said. Alderman Keister.
Make a motion, we suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you.
I just have one more question. Attorney Zito couldn't find in there where there's a stipulation of when that payment was necessary. So do you want to add that to it?
You can, I mean, I guess what I was looking at, typically there's a date written in where it says it's mutually agreed that this year's transfer will come into effect, and then in this case, it's actually checked for upon IDOT approval. So upon IDOT approval, then the provisions of supplement V would take place, which is the payment of $9,048 from Stevenson County to the city of Freeport. So if you would like to add in anything more, I would just simply convey it back to the state.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the council? Do you want to make that amendment or just leave it as is?
The question I have, Madam Mayor, is if this has to go back through IDOT, if we change it, we would have to go back through IDOT review.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't guarantee a date which they would officially stamp it, which then if you perceive that, that could be an issue.
So leave it as is? Okay, so we have a motion to move this forward by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman Keister, and we have suspension of the rules made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney. So is there any further discussion on the suspension of the rules only? Oh, that's right, it's non-debatable. Okay, so we have a non-debatable, and it needs to pass by a 2/3 majority. So Madam Clerk, would you take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, so now before your final passage is ordinance 2017-54. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance now?
No, we're doing it correctly.
Okay.
Since you make a motion to delay it over the second week.
To move it forward.
Yeah, and then we can do a suspension of the rules.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
I just want to make a quick statement. I want to thank Alderman Clem for bringing that up about the flag and stuff, because I think it is very important, especially with these veterans groups and stuff. If they want to put it up and we can use it to honor them, and I think I appreciate the rest of the council members voting for it to approve it so we can move it forward and have it up in time for the 4th of July.
Any further discussion?
Thank you very much, Alderman Keister. One of the groups I did not mention that was funded, it's basically been funded by all the groups in town except one, and there just simply isn't enough members or support in that one. And the other one I did forget to mention was the AMVETS. So we do have Korean War, AMVETS, VFW, and VFNOW. So it's a great project for the service people around town. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, before you is the final passage of ordinance 2017-54. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And that also passes 8-0.
Okay, now moving on to item number 12. Madam Clerk, would you please read into the record the adoption of resolution R 2017-36? That one, yes.
Resolution of the City of Freeport, Illinois, authorizing the amendment of the city loan to the Freeport Area Economic Development Foundation. A draft of this ordinance was reviewed at the June 12, 2017 Committee of the Whole and moved forward for recommendation upon a motion made by Alderperson Busker, seconded by Alderperson McClanathan.
Is there any further discussion on this resolution?
Motion to move it forward?
Second.
Actually, you want to make a motion
Yes.
for approval?
Yes, for approval of resolution 217-37.
And so we have a motion made by Alderman Clem and seconded by Alderman Busker for the adoption of resolution 2017-36. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on this adoption?
McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw. Aye. Keister. Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 13 is the adoption of Resolution R 2017-37. Madam Clerk, could you read this into the record?
Resolution to approve an application to the U.S. Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing Hiring Grant.
Chief Barkalow.
Thank you, Mayor. This grant is through the Justice Department. It will provide $125 in federal funds for each full-time sworn officer hired through the program.
It's $125,000. You said $125.
Thank you. There is no match requirement. However, the officer salaries with fringe benefits will exceed the maximum federal contribution. So just keep in mind that the maximum was $375,000. That sounds really great, but you know, when you take in the fact, some of the healthcare, pension, legacy costs, those numbers add up to about $400,000 by themselves. So while this is a great program and we're going to apply for it, and we hope that we, are awarded that kind of, money, keep in mind that that doesn't cover all the costs.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Chief Barkle, is this for the first year you hired on? How many years is this grant to cover?
This is for 3 years. So it's $125,000 for 3 years for each officer. So that's basically that comes down to about $41,000 a year. The starting salary, contractually is a little bit more than that, but then when you add in everything else, that's where the money comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. And I'm reading through the section too, and it said then the city of Freeport will provide the $478,000 and some amount in cash matching funds. And this is also to cover that 3-year contract. Is that true?
That's right.
Thank you.
Mayor. I'll defer to Alderman Smith first.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you. And Chief Barkalow, is there a commitment to retain these 3 positions for a certain period of time following them?
I don't have that right in front of me. I know that in the past we've had somewhat of commitments, but our numbers are so low at this particular time. I think it's going to be a really yes, right. It's going to be a mute point.
And then in the past, I know these grants have offered an attenuated match, or they funded it on an attenuated rate. So the first year they would fund at a certain rate, in the second year that would be reduced, and the third year would be reduced even further until, I guess the theory was that eventually you would wean off the federal funding in favor of localized funding, and then those provisions have been removed in the contract?
I believe so. That this is, $375,000 is the maximum, is what we could get, and then we will be responsible for the rest.
So these grants are currently being used in Rockford as well as Champaign, and what it does is it's tied to the standing up of special units, similar to what our any game units
School resource.
Right, and so the idea is that it offsets some of this initial cost to stand up these units that we have as we go forward. It does not wean and softens, that it will allow us to give us 3 years to come up with a funding source to keep these officers on.
Alderman McClanahan.
Thank you. We've been discussing in the budget process that it came out clear from the majority of council members and that we wanted with the police to be adding some officers in regards to that. I think if we weren't in that position, it might be more of a tougher discussion. Do we want to add on this amount of cost with this grant? But we're in a situation where we've said we want to be adding these officers. So if we're gonna be committing the money, I don't see that we really have anything to lose by going for the grant on this at this time. So I recommend we go forward and approve that.
Mayor?
Are you making a motion then?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2017-37.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Alderman McClanahan, seconded by Alderman Chesney to adopt resolution 2017-37. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor.
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. And I just would note for the viewing audience and those members of the public that this falls within the council and the mayor's aggressive plan on public safety. So public safety was number one. So the authorization of 3 police officers, attacking the grants, blight reduction, as well as infrastructure. So Chief Barkley, I hope you're feeling the love over there because we're giving you everything we got. So we got to have safe communities because that's going to have an impact on so many other things. So it goes down to public safety.
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
The only part I want to bring up, and please, I'm not against it whatsoever. Alderman Smith mentioned it. We've done this in the past and turned around and given back money to the government for it. It's a great program to get started. What we have to do on our own then is commit ourselves to come up with the funds to keep this going. You know, it's an absolutely wonderful thing, but if you don't really keep the tags on it, at the end of 3 years, we could really be in big trouble. So that's the only caution. I'm 100% for it.
Mayor?
And that's a good thing to remember if we get the grant. Alderman Smith.
I just I want to express that I'm in favor of this program and I'm in favor of going forward on the grant. I just brought up my remarks in order to clarify some of the provisions, and I certainly wasn't making an argument against the grant on the basis of us having given money back in the past. So.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the adoption of Resolution 2017-37?
McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw. Aye. Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
And Clem.
Aye.
And that passes 8-0.
On to item number 14, which is the approval of bids. We have the demolition residential properties CD 002-17. Madam Clerk, is there anything you need to read into that?
The bid opening was held on June 14th, 2017 in the Community Development Department.
Alex, you want to take that?
Thank you, Mayor. So this was for the demolition of 7 properties. These properties vacant and abandoned and are actually going to be funded through the Abandoned Properties Program that we've received the $72,000 through IDA, which is why we did these as a group. We had 5 bids submitted. The low bid was by Fisher Excavating Incorporated. Package bid for all 7 properties, $60,150. That's significantly less than the next closest bid of $81,200. So our recommendation at this time is to award to the low bidder, Fisher Excavating Incorporated.
Mayor?
Mayor?
Was that you?
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, I say go ahead with the motion to approve Fisher's Excavating bid for this property, those properties.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the bid for Fisher Excavating made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there further discussion? Alderman Chesney?
Thank you. Director Mills, is the property across from Ansgard on West Street included in one of these 2 proposals? Perfect. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
It's included in this one.
Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the approval of the bid for Fisher Excavating?
McClanahan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw. Aye. Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Item number 15 is the demolition residential properties CD 00317. Madam Clerk, could you read this?
This was another bid opening on June 14th, 2017 by the Community Development Department.
Director Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. This bid was for the demolition of 6 properties. These properties are all individual fast-track demolitions as provided for in state statute that we posted up and followed through the process. Not receiving any objections or hearing from anybody. They're all vacant and abandoned as well. Open windows, open doors, those kind of things. What we've done here is actually for purchase, to leverage purchasing powers, bid them as a package. So for this, we had 6 bids submitted, 5 package bids submitted. There was one irregular bid that chose to only submit for 1 or 2 houses to demolish. But at any rate, the low bid was by Kleckner Excavating. Package bid for all 6 properties is $49,900.
Mayor,
So we'd recommend award to them at this time.
Alderman Keister.
make a motion to approve the bid from Kleckner Excavation, $49,900.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Kleckner Excavating, made by Alderman Keister, second by Alderman Busker. Is there any further discussion on item number 15?
I would just note that low bid is approximately $8,000 less than the next highest bid. That's all.
Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the demolition of CD 003-17.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Bradshaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Moving on to item number 16, we have 2017 street resurfacing. Madam Clerk, would you read this?
That was a bid opening this morning, June 19th, 2017 by the city engineer.
Sean.
Thank you. A couple of exciting things to mention on this one. If you recall, about a year ago, I said we probably received the lowest bid prices that you've ever received in the city of Freeport this year, so through everything but the kitchen sink at it. Well, we didn't quite throw everything but the kitchen sink at it, but we certainly received the lowest bid prices I've ever seen here. That's compounded by a couple of things. Your hyperlink should be updated if you want to follow along, but basically we bid a base bid and then an alternate bid. The alternate bid was to kind of stretch beyond what I thought maybe our budget might be, hoping that we would see some favorable bid prices. And that's mostly due to competition, because we've opened the door with the Phase B project to a couple more contractors are now more comfortable working here because they worked with me all summer. Declining asphalt prices, that this was reduced into just one mobilization location. And then there's just been fewer projects in the region, not as much state work as well to go around. So we did have a bid opening this morning. The low bid actually for both bid packages was by Martin and Company Excavating, who did our street program last year. They were the low bidder on the alternate, which is what I would recommend because it's the largest package, for $316,139.55. They were low bid by about $12,000 on that package. Just to give you a little bit of a reference, the cost difference between the 2 bids, you're basically paying $119.42 per lineal foot on the first package. We're bidding a slightly larger project, brought that down to $114.87 foot. So you save $4.55 by bidding something slightly bigger, which is what I always echo here of the biggest thing that we can bid, the more the merrier. Looking at these numbers, and you'll say, well, wow, Sean, your engineer's estimate of $399,000 was way off. Actually, there's 2 pay items. The earth excavation and the aggregate base are averages from 2015 projects. And the rest of them are the actual numbers from 2016. So you can see there's a substantial, almost $80,000 savings we received this year from similar numbers that we've received in the last 2 or 3 years here in the city of Freeport. And that's holds testament to our ability to bid a little bit bigger projects with some of the cost savings and the mobilizations factored in. So that leads us to 2 things. I would take a motion to accept the bid for Martin Excavation for $316,139.55. This does have to wait 8 days. You're giving me approval to award the bid in 8 days, barring that there is no bid protest for MFT requirements. That's language is stated there. The other question is I have budgeted, and you've seen in your own budget, more money for street improvements than this bid came in at. Is there leave of the council to give me a limit on which to spend? And where I would go with this is we would probably look to include in this area Arapahoe Drive into the improvements, which would take, by my estimate, up the total contract to $397,788.07. Or we take our win for what it is and we look at other projects elsewhere.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanahan.
Thank you. Tom.
It's all in your ward.
The drawbacks of not having the water pressure.
That's right.
Over there. I tell you, it's rough. But you were talking about the 399 or 397, and the reason you're recommending that is because that's right underneath your estimate that you're having, and it's what we have basically given you the authority from anyway. And you're saying, what do we want to do with that additional 80 or 70?
Correct. The IDOT resolution that the IDOT estimate that I set down for was to approve $399,000 worth of work. Certainly don't have to spend it here, don't even have to spend it in this program, but I offered up as the next logical section that I would replace in this area would be Arapahoe Drive, based on the traffic volumes.
Follow up, Mayor.
Alderman McClanahan.
Would it be the most cost effective, since you've got Mesa and Canyon Drive, and the Arapahoe is connected right next to it, when you're taking into effect mobilization and all the other factors, if we were to expand and put it up to the 397,000 figure that you had referenced, would it be most cost effective to do the Arapahoe Drive, or were there other potentially more cost effective options?
I would be concerned with adding a secondary mobilization in this. The contractor may not approve of it. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to go ask them if that's, this is the work that they would like to extend to the contract. However, in that area, if you look at your location map, we did microsurfacing the very first year, 3 years ago, on Mesa Drive in the section of the cul-de-sac area. We did it on Appaloosa, and we did it at the cul-de-sac at the end of Arapahoe. So when we look at reconstructing this section of Cherokee Hills, you would do, this was kind of phase one. The microsurfacing streets need to wait a while. So you'd be looking at Arapahoe and Apache Trail and North Canyon in the second phase. And then ultimately those sections we microsurfaced in the third phase. Now, those phases could be 20 years apart, I don't know. But ultimately that's the next section you would do in this area. Extending it beyond that, the reason why this area was selected is it's outside the new pressure zone, the water main is outside the roadway, all the utilities are relatively good. You start trying to fit streets into that category this year, it shrinks very, very quick. So that's where my recommendation would either be to pocket the money for another project or do this extension on Arapahoe Drive.
Mayor.
Alderman Chisholm.
A few things. First thing is we need to call this the McClanahan Road Program. But on a more serious note, if we're looking about expanding the bid totals, is there a particular reason why the second piece of this couldn't be before the council for a final approval? I guess I'm trying to understand the procedure of how we would move forward with, just saying give me leave and just it's going to go on Arapahoe. I don't know that. Are we going to bid out that particular piece too?
No, what you would be doing is extending the contract quantities to include this for the specific low bid contractor based on what they bid on the first 75% of it. And where I'm asking for leave of counsel in that, if you so choose, I'll go either way with it, is the fact that I don't want to get in a situation where I've outspent that kind of 10% that I'm typically giving them freedom to expend. We'll spend right down to the dollar amount on this, but I don't want to get into a scenario where I have outspent your authority.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
I don't know, the more I think about it, if the money's in the budget already, and we all know what the streets are in Freeport anyway. If we have an opportunity now to add a section to this and kind of trying to get a little ahead of it, to me, I think it's a no-brainer. I think if the money is there and he has an opportunity to do another section beyond what he had programmed, I think we need to allow him to do it.
Manager Crowe, is it your opinion that this is the best place to spend that extra money?
It is, because if we go out for another bid at another location, we're going to be dealing with mobilization. Here they are, we'll have the equipment in the area. And be adding, we'll get probably more bang for our buck. And it will finish off, basically complete the Cherokee Hills area for a good period of time as we go forward. So we won't have to be back into this particular area for at least 3 to 5 years.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
And then, Engineer Gallagher, how much additional funds are you requesting? We're at 316, so you're requesting how much additional funds?
It was approximately, I wrote it on something here, if I covered up. 81,648.52, which brought the total to $397,788.07.
Alderman Clem, did you have something on that? Did you ask? No?
I did. I did.
Alderman Smith.
I just want to know that we aren't inviting, I mean, you said there was a period of time when other bidders could protest the bids. We aren't further inviting a protest if we now extend the work area and risk someone coming in and saying, well, if I'd realized it included more work, I would have bid it lower.
I certainly understand your concerns. Basically, you would be giving me the authority of a threshold, not this contractor. You'd still be awarding the bids as presented. You'd given me the expenditure of what we actually already submitted to IDOT, which was $399,000.
Okay. It would be just basically handled as a modification to, as we go forward. So you're giving the engineer the capability to modify the contract as awarded.
Madam Mayor?
We don't have to modify it though, right? Because it's already part of the original bid, or the original proposal to IDOT.
Correct. We don't have to modify it with the DOT, only our conversation with the contractor.
Alderman Clem.
Tell me if I'm wrong then, but I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city engineer to spend $397,780.01 and have him come back to us and just say, hey, here's what I'm going to do as far as where I'm going to put it.
Second.
Mayor?
Alderman Smith.
Perhaps the motion ought to say up to that.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're kind of directing you to spend it all.
We'll put the up to it.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Keister to modify according to Engineer Gallagher's recommendation, up to his recommendation for the street resurfacing bid for Martin and Company, correct? Any further discussion?
I think maybe you have two motions. One, you're giving me authority to spend, and the other one is actually accepting their bid, correct?
Do we need to?
Okay.
We didn't. So do we need two seconds? Okay. Okay, so then let's keep it at what Alderman Clem said, just a modification made by Engineer Gallagher to spend up to that amount. Any further discussion on that part?
Just a point of order real quick. Are we able to vote on an item that is not on the agenda? Because the $80,000 would not be on the agenda.
This is one previously. I'm just trying to wrap that around.
The amount was previously approved in the IDOT resolution, correct?
It's actually the engineer's estimate that went with this project to IDOT, which
So-
authorizes us to execute that level of MFT funding.
So there should have been a resolution authorizing the amount of MFT as we go forward.
The whole doc, the 390 that you did.
Right, that should have been previously approved under the MFT resolution.
Yeah, we appropriate every year. You did this back in December, $630,000. This year was whatever change that was. So that all is what you've already given me authority to spend. What I'm asking for is the authority to spend that much on this project.
And I believe, Mayor, and I believe, didn't we set it somewhere around, it was right around the 400. You came back to us later and said, I want about this much in roads and this much in engineering, and it was right around the 400 for that,
Right.
for the roads. Yeah. Okay.
So we're okay?
I'm okay, but I think that was your question, right?
As long as you're
Previously, we went on to spend up to $399 or whatever it is, but because we have, the bid came in at low because of, good bid prices and everything like that, but we still authorized to spend $399. And now he's just looking for direction as to where to finish that allocation.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, could you take the roll on the modification only? On that approval?
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
That passes 8-0.
So now do we have a motion to approve Martin and Company as awarded with
So moved.
bid? By Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Any further discussion on the approval of Martin and Company? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
And Clem.
Aye.
That too passes 8-0.
Okay, next is item number 17, reports on department heads. And since these were not a part of our links, we'll just have to have each one of the department heads give what they had normally thought they were going to see in a link form. So, Finance Director.
No report, the mayor.
Nope. No report as well.
Public Works, no reports. Wow, you're really good. Fire.
Yes, thank you. Last week we were quite busy. On Wednesday evening we responded to outside sighting on a restaurant on West Colina. Apparently it's believed that a person had extinguished a cigarette on wooden combustible siding. It was quite windy that evening, so that it ignited. And fortunately there was enough people around that they noticed it and called it in right away. Later on that evening, we responded to a structure fire on the 1200 block of Logan Street, which began on a rear pool patio deck and extended to the neighbor's house as well. So essentially, we had two structure fires in one evening based on that point of origin. And where we determined it's accidental. And then lastly, last Friday, our paramedics responded to a heroin overdose. The patient was essentially dead. They were not breathing. And with the use of Narcan, we resuscitated that patient. It was a successful resuscitation, so person's still alive. Paramedics did a good job. That's all. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Barklow.
Yes, thank you. Just want to remind everybody this weekend we have some special events coming up. You heard earlier about Pink Heels. There's also Touch a Truck on Saturday, and then Sunday there's a Dairy Days parade. That's right. I forgot about that.
Thanks, Chief. And Water and Sewer.
A couple of updates here. Pearl City Road, we are completed with that section, and that also closes out the water project minus the tree replacement. So I owe it to a bunch of homeowners to get them a letter, and that is going out this week. But we've completed almost all of our punch list work as well. So just some restoration seeding stuff that we will continue to chip away at throughout the course of the summer. Pressure zone, we did isolate that last remaining valve that was unlocatable. We got that shut down, and so for the first time last week, the water tower actually was active and had about 8 foot of water in it. That brought up, residents may have noticed maybe about a 5 PSI increase, probably not noticeable unless you're really focused on it. But ultimately, over the next month and a half, we'll begin to calibrate that system. So there's a lot of ins and outs that former Director Glenn Denning will be working with our crews on, and that's just a lot of that system was never up and running in the last 4 years since it's been built. So we'll be continuing to tweak that, and then that's where you'll begin to see some of the water calls, rusty water and things that will be out flushing. So stay tuned for that. Also, work here has begun on City Hall restoration, so we've completed some tree removal, tree trimming, got some conduit completed so that way we can finish the sidewalks, and that will ultimately lend itself to landscaping, the lighting of the statues, the front of the building, We'll have a spot for a future monument sign, and I believe Director Dole is going to move the flagpole that's in front of City Hall down here as well. And so we will have that to replace the current flagpole. It's pretty beat up out front. And so I just caution anybody that's coming in to pay a bill, see city service, please stay to the sidewalks that are available. We're going to have the yards tore up pretty good, and we may have equipment moving machinery out front for some time. So that is all.
Thank you, Engineer Gallagher. And I believe that would conclude the department head reports. City manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple things we got going on. So we're going to officially name Kurt Sutman, not Schilling. No, I'm not hiring a baseball pitcher here. As the director for IT, we have worked closely with him and Alex out of the police department. They're going to, and consolidating it. We're already seeing some benefits. We're disconnecting the phone lines in the old city hall we've been paying for the last 6 years, as well as identifying 6 telephones, mobile phones that were still being used by people that are no longer at the city. So the other thing that's going forward is you will see more information about the reorganization within community development. And I am meeting Thursday with Roxanne. She has completed the review of our ordinances as we go forward. To fully adopt the city manager form of government. And I will be bringing the first reading for those forward on the 3rd of July. So that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Lowell, for all those fines. We appreciate that. Just want to keep it short. Have had several phone calls in the last while asking if the Constellation letter is legitimate to that our constituents got in the mail, and yes, it is. You don't have to do anything if you want to be a part of the City of Freeport's electrical aggregation program. However, you want to opt out, then you'll need to make that phone call to put your other option in there. But otherwise, if you want to go with that program, you don't have to do anything. The letter is legitimate. Second, August 12th is cruise night, and not only for the listening audience, but I'd like to challenge the council as well. FDDF, Freeport Downtown Development Foundation, is in bad need of more volunteers. So if you could avail yourself to that, there's multiple levels of service for that day. And so if you could give them a call, and that would be very appreciated. And then also, lastly, just wanted to give a shout out to Michelle at Logan's and her crew. They were tasked to come up with $7,500 to match for the fireworks, plus an additional $2,000 for the additional expenses. And as of today, they are a little over $10,000. So they have done a tremendous job, and they're not done yet. So very pleased with how they have come forward and appreciate all that they do. So anyway, that concludes mine. And so, Peter, if you have anything, Alderman Clenathan?
No further comments tonight, thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Ross?
Just wanted to like to thank whoever put the blinds up, the shades up. There now, the godsend.
Yeah, that's the $10 solution versus the $1,000 solution.
Hey, $10 sounds good to me. We put that in the budget.
Alderman Smith? Alderman Busker?
Just a reminder of the 5th Ward Neighborhood Watch meeting tomorrow night at the First Church of the Nazarene at 6 o'clock. So if anyone's interested, please show up.
Thank you. Alderman Bradshaw?
Nothing this evening.
Alderman Keister?
Yes, Mayor, I have one or two things real quickly. I'm just checking something here. First of all, several people have contacted me lately because apparently there is a rumor going around out there that due to my recent circumstances, I am stepping down from City Council. I want to set the record straight right now. That's not true. I will complete my term, and when the time comes, I'll decide if I'm going to run for a third or not. I've got too much going on right now to think about that right now, but if you hear a rumor that I'm stepping down, it's not true. I'm here to stay. Second of all, kind of follow up on what Mayor Miller said, as chairman of the Sky Concert Committee. Unfortunately, due to my personal affairs right now, I haven't been able to be active as I'd like to be. But I will tell you what, these people have stepped up. And it is phenomenal what they have achieved in 2 weeks, and they're not done yet. And we are going to have a very good celebration of the 4th of July. It will be starting at 2 o'clock. I do want to remind everybody that parking is free at the fairgrounds. However, we will be standing there with buckets and taking donations on that evening. So I want to remind you of that. Also a reminder that the 7th Ward Neighborhood Watch is on the 4th Wednesday of the month, 6:30 at the main fire station. And finally, I want to thank everybody for your best wishes and your prayers. My wife is home. As of last Tuesday, she has stopped treatment, and we have her home now. So this is the first time in several months that she's actually watched me on City Council again. So I'm sure I will get a complete report when I get home. But other than that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor and Council. We've laid out a very aggressive first 30 days. Just a quick summary. This is by no way a victory lap, but we have made tremendous progress in the first 30 days. The first item we did is we are going to make a decision on City Hall, or the former City Hall. I understand that Engineer Gallagher and Manager Crow are working on that. Another item that we've decided and we discussed before Mayor Miller took office is we were going to double the demolitions. It looks in this particular case we are going to triple the demolitions. Tree trimming, we are looking at eliminating the backlog within 1 year, according to Director Dole. We're well on pace for that, and then we're also told that stump removal is 100% caught up, so if there's any outstanding issues, please direct that to the administration. And thank you later, Lowell. Initiate a dump program. I know that Alderman Busker is working on that for bulk pickup. We plan on doubling the infrastructure funding. Not exactly there, but we're making some headway. Several $100,000 of additional funding is going to go to the infrastructure. We also looked at exiting out of the FDDF funding plan. That was passed by a great majority out of the City Council to go ahead and realign our priorities. There's also discussion on the landlord registration fee, again, attacking blight reduction and streamlining our processes, and it appears that there is consensus on that issue. Raising the permitting fees to entice people to clean up their properties, that also passed. So in the first 30 days, I would say that the City Council and the Mayor have laid out an aggressive and completed a very aggressive agenda, and I would challenge us to top our next 30 days to see what that looks like. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Chesney. Alderman Clem.
I'd just like to mention that as part of that fireworks money raising, two of the organizations that have chipped in so far, AMVETS and VFW, we're also going to hear from Vietnam and the Korean War veterans. So the services have come through, and we're glad to see that everything's moving forward, and we're going to end up in pretty good shape.
And Alderman Clem, I want to thank you for assistance in contacting those people and helping with that.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, on to item number 21, public comments. Tommy?
We got a question about St. Vincent.
What about St. Vincent?
The chapel over there by St. Vincent's. When you could talk to LB about that. They're going to tear part of it down on July 14th.
Director Mills, do you know what he's talking about?
Huh? Oh, Todd Bogle's going to check on about it.
Okay, well, Chief? Okay.
And I want to tell you, Joey Mills, you did a good job doing the city council meeting tonight.
Thank you, Tommy.
And we want to tell you about the ramps coming up on the 27th of July. And they want to know you can come to speak about the Willathon.
Have them contact the office. We'll see how the scheduling works.
And I want to tell everybody you do a good job of
Thanks,
doing the city of Freeport and trying to get some stuff going on.
Thank you.
And Cole, we wanna know about, you got an update about the Kmart and the old Eagle store?
It's the, we're working with the NIDA to get the Kmart moved forward. It was recently bought by Bank of America, and they're moving it forward to see if we can get it developed. Same thing with we're looking for a developer into the Eagle store.
Or we're gonna get something in there, or?
We don't have anybody right now committed.
So you're gonna take care of that, huh?
Move it forward.
Well, you do a good job, Paul. I'm glad you got you on the city manager. I'm proud of you. Congratulations.
Thanks, Tommy. Any other public comments? Seeing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
There.